5, so getting here was a little bit challenging. Today is Thursday, October 10, 2024, and I am calling to order the meeting of the Los Angeles Probation Oversight Commission. I am Eduardo Mundo, Chair of the Commission. Welcome, and we look forward to hearing from our panelists, commissioners, and the public today, and on a number of important issues. I'm excited to announce that Supervisor Solis appointed Commissioner Sam Prater to the POC. Sam is well known to many of us for his dedication to supporting the youth and young adults in their reentry and educational needs. Commissioner Prater, welcome, and we are looking forward to working with you. Please take a moment to introduce yourself.
Everybody, happy Thursday.
All right, Eduardo didn't turn over the mic to me for my instructions on how you have to embrace your inner Oprah at these meetings. So because we have such a large virtual audience, I will ask all of the commissioners and presenters to please speak directly into the microphone so that our virtual audience can hear. Thank you. Sorry about that.
No worries at all. Happy Thursday, everybody. My name is Sam Prater. A pleasure to join the commission. I'm the founder of an organization called Los Angeles Room and Board, where we're focused on ending student and youth homelessness and hunger, really as a tool for college completion. And so excited to be in this space, trying to offer support to our youth who are stepping down from incarceration. And so, again, pleasure to sort of like listen and to learn and to contribute on with the wonderful work that's happening in this space. So thanks for having me.
Thank you, Sam. Now I will turn it over to Wendy Julian, our Executive Director, to explain how you can participate during today's meetings, and then she will call the roll.
Thank you and welcome, Commissioner Prater. I'm so happy to have you join us. As always, the Probation Oversight Commission is founded on the concept of encouraging real participation from the public. We're so happy to see a big audience here in person today, and welcome to all of you who are joining online. We will provide information about how you can give public comment throughout the meeting, but I'm going to give a general overview of it first. The way it's going to work is that on every item, we will give the presentation if there is any, and then commissioners will make some comments and make a motion if there's any motion to be made. Then we'll take public comment. Then the commissioners will come back for follow-up conversation based on the public comment and take a vote. So in other words, you'll have the opportunity to comment on every item on the agenda before the commissioners take any action. If there are more folks participating here than we have time for on any item, we may restrict the time of each individual comment, but we will play that by ear as we go through the topics, and Chair Mundo will make a decision as we go. Please remember to speak directly into the microphones. That goes for those of you doing public comment in the room as well, because we want to make sure that we can hear you and our virtual audience can hear you clearly. I'd like to follow, for everyone to follow some code of conduct guidelines. Please stop speaking immediately when your time ends. That's a code of conduct for me because I hate interrupting people. Please make sure your public comment relates directly to the subject matter of that item. If it doesn't, you need to hold your comments until the end in general public comment. Please remain respectful of each other and the forum. And if anyone engages in conduct that disrupts the meeting, you're subject to being removed from the meeting. How to participate. If you're here in person, it's very easy. You just stand up and talk into the microphone about the item that we're on. If you joined via WebEx, you need to use the little raise your hand function at the bottom of the page. It's a little picture of a hand. If you're on the phone, you need to dial *3 on your phone, and that will raise your hand in our queue, and we'll be able to call you based on your phone number. Sorry, I'm just watching to see if I'm doing something wrong, but I'm not. No, we're good. Okay. If you have any technical questions or you can't find the hand icon or you have any trouble raising your hand, send a message to Janae in the chat and she will help you. Or you can also send an email to info@poc.lacounty.gov. You can also send your comment in writing. And if you wish for your comment to be anonymous, please indicate that. And all comments we receive before 5 p.m. today will be attached to the agenda so that everyone will be able to read them. If you sent your comment in before the meeting, we already sent it out to all of the commissioners and have published it to the agenda already. Again, that's info@poc.lacounty.gov. Please do not send your public comment in the chat. That will not work. We won't get a copy of it. The commissioners won't get a copy of it. Janae may respond to you, but that's not compliant with the Brown Act. Our meeting is being broadcast live today on our YouTube channel. We're also recording the meeting, so by participating, you're consenting to the recording, but there's no engagement with users on YouTube. We encourage you to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you can watch the live meeting, the recaps and recordings. You can also follow our social media accounts on Facebook, Instagram, and Threads at LA County POC. For more information about our meetings and information in detail about our reports and work that our partners are doing, please continue to attend, and we ask you to invite others to attend. Buenos días, bienvenidos. Estamos en un local nuevo hoy. Si está aquí en persona, le damos una cordial bienvenida y le invitamos a participar en el comentario público en cada cuestión que tenemos en la agenda. Si está participando virtualmente vía WebEx, puede usar el botoncito de levantar la mano, que es una manita que está ubicado en la parte baja de la página. Si está escuchando la conferencia por teléfono, puede levantar su mano oprimiendo estrella 3 y le avisaremos cuando sea su turno. Si está viendo la conferencia por YouTube, no puede hacer comentarios públicos y tiene que conectarse vía WebEx. We're going to give everyone 2 minutes unless the chair changes his mind about that. Si quiere hacer su comentario en español, le daremos 4 minutos, 2 minutos para su comentario, 2 minutos para traducción. Yo le puedo traducir o usted puede proveer su propio traductor. Gracias. Y le puedo traducir en español solamente, no me estoy ofreciendo traducir en ningún otro idioma. Only the people who just understood what I said are laughing. I'm just saying I'm only volunteering to translate in Spanish. I am unfortunately unable to do that in any other language. I will now call the roll. Commissioners, please respond when I call your name. Commissioner Dolores Canales? Present. Commissioner Ishay Jackson is absent today. Commissioner Millie Kakani? Commissioner Don Meredith? Commissioner Sam Prater?
Here.
Commissioner Diane Terry? And Chair Eduardo Mundo. So we have 9 seats on our commission. We have 6 members present, which is a quorum, and 1 member absent, and 2 vacant positions. And with that, Chair Mundo, we have a quorum, and I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, Wendy. Let's proceed with item 2, the approval of September 12 meeting minutes. Wendy, do we have any written public comments or live public comments for item 2?
No written comments on the minutes. Anybody here want to make a public comment on our minutes? Anybody online raise their hand? Seeing none?
Can I have a motion to approve the September 12 meeting minutes?
Make a motion to approve the September 12th meeting minutes.
Seconded by. Thank you. Are there any changes to the minutes? Hearing none, commissioners, please vote with a voice vote. Anyone opposed? Everyone, yes. Okay, let's move on to agenda item 3, which is to discuss and take possible action on a report from the Probation Department on its progress with responding to the Board of Supervisors' motion on financial literacy for youth in the Los Angeles County Care and Accountability of the Los Angeles County Probation Department's unclaimed juvenile funds and property. Administrative Deputy Robert Smythe, thanks for joining us, and please proceed with your report.
Good morning, Robert Smythe. As Mr. Mundo mentioned, I'm over the administrative services at probation, so it's all the finance, budget, contracts, facilities, IT, and probably a few other things I'm not mentioning. On June 25th, the board passed a motion to advocate for 3 things: financial literacy training for our youth, banking for our youth, and the return of confiscated funds from those youth. Those are funds confiscated from youth when they're brought in by law enforcement and kept at juvenile hall. So we take everything from them, their clothing, anything in their pockets, that sort of thing. They're issued out juvenile hall clothing, and we tag and bag everything and give the kid the receipt. We issued a response on September 23rd, so I think all of you got a copy of that, and that's a public document, so you can see it on the board's website as well. And that response went through those 3 areas, and I'm going to go through those 3 areas. The board motion also required every 30-day report back and an oral report to this group here. So we've done that 30-day report back last week, Monday, I think it was issued. And here I am also for the 30-day oral report. So we'll do that every 30 days. And every 30 days, we're basically going to follow the same template. You'll get the 30-day written report, which is basically the same format. And you get an oral report from us, also the same format. So ask me any questions you want. Again, I'm going to go through three things: financial literacy, confiscation of funds from youth and the return of those confiscated funds, and banking. So I'll start with financial literacy. We put together a financial literacy program, and we did a lot of research throughout the county and found that a lot of county departments actually do have financial literacy training already in place. Includes Department of Mental Health, Department of Public Social Services, Department of Economic Opportunity. There's some linkage to this POC and some of your support staff. And others I may be forgetting at the moment. The Auditor Controller and the Treasurer Tax Collector got together, and they put together videos on financial literacy, which are available on their website. So that too is available on all sorts of different topics. So financial literacy is out there, and LACO does some financial literacy training in its classrooms at our facilities. So that's happening as well. And the DMH program involves an outside vendor who happens to be two young men, former foster youth, now adults, who run a financial, how would you say, consulting firm for people who want to learn how to invest. And they do training. That group's called Twinspire. They're teaching at the, and pardon me if I get the acronym wrong, it's foster group homes, SY something, something, something. There's a bunch of initials. But anyway, they do that. I'm going to go out and view what they do next month to see what great things they have, what best practices they have. We have our own program, so we have our own best practices. So I'll get to that now. We have provided financial literacy training to youth 3 times so far. I think 2 of them I sort of hide in my notes here, and I gave you guys my fact sheet, so I hope you have that. 2 of those were provided as a collaboration between the Auditor Controller, a group called RISE Credit Union, formerly called Southern California Edison Credit Union. They've recently changed their name, and the probation department. So we sat with 2 separate groups of youth at Barry J and asked them, what do you want in terms of financial literacy training? And what do you want in terms of banking? So great groups. I was at both of those. Great group of kids. They asked great questions. So that was our first foray into financial literacy training. We also asked kids at Dorothy Kirby Center. While we were teaching another program, we asked them, what would you like to hear? What topics do you want? So the 3 main topics they wanted to know is how to start a business, how to invest, and how do I establish or restore my credit rating? And I was very impressed that they actually knew at their age what a credit rating was, because I didn't know that when I was 16, 17, 18 years old. So good for them. So we did put together a class with 4 modules. We have a PowerPoint. We've delivered that class once. It'll be done 2 more times next week, and then we'll continue on from there. So we'll have 3 done by the end of next week. So next time you get a 30-day report, it's going to be 3 accomplished. The first time was to a small group of the young ladies at Dorothy Kirby Center, so just 4 of them. So they were our pilots, so to speak. The class is 4 parts. We do it in 2 classes, so 4 modules taught in 2 sessions. Those modules are starting a business, that's what the kids asked for. Investing, that's what the kids asked for. Borrowing, which kind of links to all of that, and that deals with things like credit cards and mortgages and car loans. And by the way, many of them don't know what a mortgage is, so we explain those sorts of things. And the last one, we do sort of a catch-all about the basics of the economic system and also some behaviors that are keys to financial success. One of those big behaviors is controlling impulsivity. So, and we talk about what that is. If I don't try to talk down to anyone, I try to talk in words that we all understand, plain language as we call it. So if I use words like impulsivity or mortgage, I explain what those are. And I want to say that I used to teach at a university. I gave that up a couple of years ago. But I would talk like this at the university to these kids. And one day a young lady raised her hand and said, you keep using that word mortgage. What is that? And just like the light bulb went off in my head. So I try to explain things and not assume that these young people understand every word, just like I didn't understand when I was their age. I didn't know what a mortgage was. I never thought I'd have a mortgage. So anyway, so that's where we're going with this. A few things we focus on, things like that they don't think about, like cash flow. Cash flow is key to your life. Cash flow is key to your business if you own a business. You don't have cash, you can have great ideas and great customers. But if you don't have cash, you're bankrupt. You can't pay your bills, your vendors won't pay you. We all remember the store Mervyn's? Mervyn's is out of business. Why? They couldn't sustain their cash flow. They incurred a bunch of debt. They couldn't pay the debt. Basically, their business was repossessed by their owner, by the stockholders. So just like you'd have your own car or house repossessed if you didn't pay your car note or your mortgage. So we talk about things like that. Back to my days of teaching, a young lady also asked me, I want to start a Subway franchise. What does that take? What do you think? And she gave me all her ideas of what she's going to, sounds great. What about cash flow? What are your costs? What are your fixed costs? What are your variable costs? What does that mean? Fixed costs, costs that don't change. You're going to pay them no matter what. Variable costs, costs that change with every unit of service provided. So we talk about all that stuff. What's it going to take? How much cash you need in the bank? And then we talk to the kids. What kind of business do you want to be in? And we get all kinds of ideas from them. So it was great. The kids asked great questions. So starting a business was the first one, focusing on things like cash flow, and I gave you some ideas in the fact sheet. Investing. I used to tell the kids at USC, sorry for the UCLA people. I used to tell the kids at USC, I'm going to tell you next week the most important thing you'll ever learn in college, but you got to come next week to hear it. And it was about compounding. I used to call it the beauty of compounding interest. And with the kids at Dorothy Kirby and the kids at USC, I'd say it's like a snowball rolling downhill. It gets bigger and bigger as it rolls. And that's what happens to your investments. But you have to have a long-term frame of thinking. For all of our union friends here, if you're in the 457 plan, long-term thinking, you better be in. If you're not in, we're going to talk. It's your 4% match. All right, so it's those sorts of things that we talk about with the kids, and the kids love it because they realize we're here for them. We're here to benefit them. I had no pushback from any kid, the kids at Barry J or the kids at Kirby. So looking forward to more of that. So that's starting a business, investing, borrowing. Borrowing is a good thing. You leverage somebody else's money. What does leverage mean? We talk about that. A mortgage is the best leverage investment the average person can have. You're making money off the bank's money in addition to your down payment. Get a mortgage. Own your property, pay it off eventually, long-term thinking. And then you'll be mortgage-free, rent-free, other than your property taxes and utilities. So what a great way to live. So do that. And we also talk about borrowing. There's a buying or leasing a car. And I've had kids from USC email me years later. I remember you told me never lease a car. Absolutely right. If you're leasing a car, you're not foolish, but you're financially foolish. Never lease. Always buy and hold. If you don't believe me, go see what I drive. So little things like that. The kids like that, and they like the personal experience. Fourth of four, the basics of economics. We look at there's an essay from 1958 called I, pencil, I pencil. It's spoken in the first person as if the pencil is speaking. How is a pencil produced? From the wood, the metal, the eraser, the, what do you call it, carbon in the middle, all that sort of stuff. And use that as an analogy for how the economy works. So we talk about that, and we tie that into, back what I talked about, impulsivity. Controlling your urges to go out and blow a bunch of money on a fancy car or fancy whatever. Someone once told me, and I told this to the kids, it doesn't matter what color your washing machine is or how many dents or scratches it is, as long as it gets your clothes clean. The same analogy applies to a car. It doesn't matter what it looks like, as long as it meets some basics of safety and security and reliability. And in my case, I want nice radio and air conditioning. So things like that, controlling impulsivity, living within your means, handling your cash flow. So that's the program we're doing. So far, the kids really like it, and we'll adapt that program to anything that we learn along the way as more kids teach us what they want to know. And we're working on bringing in other people to do this well. Like I said, this group called Twinspire, which is a vendor for DMH, there are others that have also offered to do it. So we'll diversify that. I can only teach so many classes, and I'm doing it at night, which I'm happy to do. But eventually they're going to get tired of looking at me. So that's the classes. And you see the ones we've taught there. In terms of banking, and if you have any questions, let me know. In terms of banking, Rise Credit Union visited twice at Barry J. The first time was, again, a financial literacy class. The second time was to open bank accounts. I think we opened about bank accounts for about 16 kids, and there will be more to come. We had more scheduled, but some had to go to court or some other things going on. But we will make multiple visits, and we're already arranging for them to do the same thing at Kirby. We have quite a few things at Dorothy Kirby Center that want to also open bank accounts. So they opened, not me, I was there, but they opened two kinds of bank accounts, checking accounts and savings accounts. And they explained each the first time we visited. They refreshed that explanation again the second time, so the kids were familiar with it again. And then there's a third bank account that's something that they have an opportunity for, and that's called a credit builder. And what that is they will loan the kids, once they get out, $500 The $500 goes in your bank account. And then they take that money out on a either 6-month or annual basis or monthly for 12-month basis until it's paid off. And by doing that, you've got a loan that goes in your bank account and you take the loan payments out of your bank account from the same $500. You have to control your impulsivity and not spend the $500 within your account. But this is a way of a kid's building or restoring credit. And again, I was very impressed that some of these kids already had credit, already knew what it was, and already were concerned about their credit rating. So these are sorts of things. And we talk about payday loans, check cashing places, the benefits and the evils of a credit card. And if you get that credit card, get out of control and 18, 19, 20% interest. So lots of stuff to help these kids with practical issues, how to rent an apartment. What is that landlord looking for if they're going to rent to you or somebody else? How to get a job. You're competing against others for that same job. So all these things we talk about with the kids. And again, they really, really like it. And all from the mindset of we're here to help you. So they really, really like that. So that's the bank accounts, that's financial literacy. The last thing I'm going to talk about of the three things is unclaimed funds. So on the back of the, if you have it, the back of the fact sheet, it talks about the status so far. And we just started doing this. We actually started in late August.
Mr. Smythe, let me just say for the audience watching online, this is attached to the agenda item. So if you click on the link of supporting documents under the agenda item that we're on, which I think is 3,
Yes.
I might be guessing on that, you'll be able to see the form that Mr. Smythe is talking about. Sorry to interrupt.
No problem. Okay, so financial literacy, bank accounts. The third thing is the unclaimed funds. When a kid is brought in, as I mentioned, any property and anything valuable they have is taken, it's bagged and tagged, and we store it. The money typically, if it was $10 or more, was supposed to be submitted to our fiscal office, and our fiscal office would then deposit it into a county trust account where it sat. When a kid left, they were supposed to fill out a claim form. Some kids didn't. Some kids left in a hurry. They were, obviously happy to leave and weren't worried about a few dollars or more that they may have had with us. So some of them didn't claim it. And that goes back many, many years. And that's described in the board report as well. So we're going back through, reaching out to all these kids and their families and trying to track them down and get them back that money. Some of those kids owe restitution. So the money will be applied towards restitution first. And any money that's left over, that can be refunded to them. So we have done a modest number of refunds so far. And again, the numbers are listed there on the fact sheet, or you can see them online, as Wendy mentioned. And we'll continue to do that, following up with these kids and tracking them down. So those numbers you see are going to change next month. And we're trying to cut it off with the calendar month. So through September 30th, through October 31st, and so on going forward until we get this all refunded. In addition to that, we increased the level of cash that we keep locally, meaning the level we keep at the juvenile facility, rather than sending it to fiscal to get it deposited. So we increased it from $10 to $200. The average kid, when they come to it, the kid that has money, not every kid has money, but for the average kid that has money in his or her pocket, they average about $90 or $91 per kid. If we increase the amount that we retain locally to 200, that means the vast majority of money will not go to fiscal, which then will not go to the county trust fund, which will not require a claim process to come back. And what that means is when a kid is released, we hand them their property and the money and anything else, clothing, shoes, whatever they have, wristwatches, is all there. So we will keep the money in a safe. The money will be kept in a Ziploc locking bag like you'd see at a bank, and that will then be kept in the safe. And the property itself, if you have clothing and shoes, that's generally kept in a bag that's sealed and tagged. The kid gets a receipt. The tag that goes on the bag is the copy of the tag that goes to the kid. If the kid doesn't have his or her receipt, we still get them their property back because it has their name and their PDJ number and other things on, date of birth, so we can identify who the kid is. So it's a standard process to check for any property the kid has. And the bag follows the kid wherever the kid may go. So if the kid moves from one facility to another, the bag goes with them. And with that said, I'll stop and ask if there's any questions out there.
So before I, thank you. Before I pass it on to ask questions, we don't have the backside of the fact sheet. Can you just share the big numbers, like how much is in reserves and how much is kind of returned yearly?
We have 745 cases that we reviewed so far. I don't know out of how many. That's in the detailed report. I have to sit here and flip pages to find that. Of those 745, we've mailed out 712 inquiries to the addresses we have on record. We've got 40, and again, this was just started in September. We actually did some backup work or some prep work in August, but we actually started mailing the letters in September. So the response is really small so far. We should see that response grow when you get your next month report. 47 responses so far and 76 returned bad address. So total there, if I'm adding this in my head, is about 133, if I did the math right in my head. Of that 133, 47 responses, 76 came back as bad address. So 76 will use various skip tracing and other means to try to track down these kids to see if we can find them. I'm not saying we're going to find them all, but we'll try. That's the numbers in count. The dollars, we so far have addressed $113,000. That's out of a total of $549,000. So we're working our way through this, and we'll continue to update those numbers as we go through. All those amounts, the amount owed to youth out of that is I'm going to round it off, $80,000, and the amount that'll go to restitution is about $33,000. That adds up to the total of 113. And the funds dispersed so far, $2,170 dispersed to the kids so far, and $8,814 to restitution so far. That's where we're at.
You do have a copy of it. It's on the back page of the board report, not on the flip side of the
Okay,
fact sheet.
yeah, you know what you see on the board report is the same thing on the fact
Yes.
sheet. I wrote
Sorry.
it both, so I made them look
Thank
the
you.
same. So,
Thank you.
no point in reinventing the wheel.
Thank you. Commissioners, questions, comments?
I
Commissioner
do.
Prater?
Thank you for your report. Just wanted to kind of give comment about the evaluation of the current DMH vendor, TwinSpire. And I'm not really sure what that evaluation process is, but I wanted to kind of speak. I've seen work, and they have done extraordinary work working with system impacted youth.
And I hear the same thing.
Yeah, you know what I mean? And
So
so
they
I think
came
that,
from the system, so they're very aware. Yeah.
absolutely. And I think that, sometimes when our youth are hearing whatever knowledge we're trying to transfer to them and they're hearing it from a near peer, there's a different level of impact, I think, sometimes. And so I just want to sort of like lift up that TwinSpire does some. I'm pleasantly surprised to hear you mention their name, because I've been watching their work for the last 4 years. And so they do extraordinary work. And so if that is a possibility to sort of like, work in partnership with TwinSpire to sort of get this very important work done, trying to kind of give them tools to be financially literate and to make smart choices with their funds, I think it would be a very, very beneficial thing. So I want to kind of thank you.
And they really are twins, and I am too. So I'll bring my brother in too.
Commissioner Kakani?
Thank you. Just a few questions. First, you said that you have made visits to Kirby and Barry J. Is there an intention to be in other facilities?
Absolutely.
Okay, and what's the timeline for that?
We don't have that scheduled yet. We're arranging it because to do the bank accounts, we have to get identifying information for each kid. Most kids aren't there with a driver's license, social security card. So we look up those things. If we can't find a valid government ID, the credit union allows us to use any sort of document that we have in our possession at probation, like a court document that shows the kid's name and date of birth. So what we do on every kid, we prepare a packet. So when that kid walks in, he or she sits one-on-one with a credit union representative. They had 4 representatives at the last meeting where we set up the bank accounts. So you're sitting one-on-one, you have your privacy among you and your representatives, and set that up. But there's a lot of work that goes in ahead of time to figure out which kids want to be there, and then prepare a packet for each, have them organized so it's a well-oiled machine when that process occurs.
So there is a plan then to be at, whether it's Page, Afflerbach, Rocky.
Yeah, we'll Page,
Kilpatrick.
Afflerbach, Rocky, more at Kirby. Barry J, we just touched the surface. There's, 65, 70
Right.
kids at Barry J, and we've served about 15 or something.
Okay.
So, and a few kids couldn't make it, so we definitely want to go back and catch them too. And I promised them we'd come back, so I want to fulfill that promise.
And then related to, I guess, increasing the amount from, I think it was $10 to $200 so that you could keep it, I guess, like locally. I don't know how
Yep.
else to say it. What is the timeline for that?
All we have to do is establish, we have to get the locking bags, and I believe we already have a safe, and then we're ready to go. So hopefully we can do that in the next 60 days.
Okay. And then can you just share the claim form part, at least for the next 60
Sure.
days and looking backwards? Who is it that provides the young person with the claim form?
The claim form it's supposed to come from their caseworker who handles their transition plan coming out. And the hall can do it as well. The folks at the hall can do it. It's simple. It's a half-page form. It's simply name, address, telephone number if you have one, and date of birth to confirm who you are. And that's it. It's
So
very,
have you-
very small.
I don't know if there's any like training or follow-up, or if it's like a form that can be provided to the public defenders who might have contact with their clients, or just curious what the process is of ensuring that more folks have access to the claim form so that they can then make sure that the young folks have access to the claim form.
We met with the public safety cluster, the public safety deputies of the board, and one of the concerns they had was that the form is too complex. It's really not. But that's okay. I think what their intent was, someone needs to help this kid. The kid is not thinking about a claim form. All he or she is thinking about is, hey,
I want to go home.
They're ready to go home.
Right.
So we want to make sure that claim form gets to that kid so he or she understands, hey, remember when you came in, we took this property from you, we want to give it back to you. We don't want to store it, and we, of course, we want you to have back what's rightfully yours. So we'll definitely help the kid, and that's one of the things we write about in our report back to the board. The summary doesn't have that in it, the fact sheet, but the detailed report from the board talks specifically about what you're asking. It's helping that kid, holding his or her hand, so to speak, to get him or her back their property.
Right, but as you said, the form is quite simple, so it's not, like, who is the we? Is it just that one probation officer who is their assigned caseworker who is facilitating that? Or is there a way to ensure that more people understand what this form is, what's on the form, so that there are more people who can check in with that young person to make sure that they filled it out?
We can certainly make sure that we circulate the information to our juvenile hall and camp folks. Kids get released from different places,
Right.
generally from juvenile hall, but sometimes they get released directly from camp. But we'll make sure that as part of that discharge process, they're very aware that to make sure that there's certain things they have to do as the exit occurs. And one of those things should be walking this kid through that claim form and not handing him or her a piece of paper and walking away, but standing there or sitting there while the kid fills it. Literally, I mean, it's 30 seconds to fill it out. And then making sure that form results in the swap of the property. And that form typically would go to fiscal, would then initiate with the auditor controller to have a check cut to be mailed to the kid at whatever address the kid gives. That could take 3 or 4 weeks later by the time it goes through all those processes. This way, the kid gets his or her property immediately. They typically get their clothing property immediately. It's the money part they weren't getting. So that
And
claim form is to get their money back.
Right, I got all that. So
Yeah.
is there any intention to potentially work with defense counsel so that they can also check in with their clients to make
Yeah.
sure that they're filling out?
We can
this
check
form?
with the public defender to make sure they're aware. But remember, they won't need that form
In
if the
60
money
days.
is held locally.
Right.
Because we're literally handing you your bag, you sign to say, I got it.
I understand. I'm just
Yeah.
like looking at the numbers, right? And just,
Yeah.
I mean, what was it, 23, 24, where you had $21,000 that were accumulated, right? And we're almost, just over the last 7
Yeah.
years, it was over $83,000 that you all have kind of, I mean, whatever that coffer has increased by, which, so just ensuring that as many people as possible have access to this form or know that it exists, and ensuring that young people fill it out feels really
The
important. and
greater
urgent.
clarity and transparency, the better.
Thank you.
Commission.
Just repeat for me again, the information you collect on that half form, you said the name, date of birth, what else?
The claim form, I think it's name, address, a telephone number if they have one, and name, date of birth, and address.
And-
Where do you want this check mailed? Because I go back to the process. When we were depositing all that money into the county trust fund and then you have to claim it back again, there's no way to give the kid cash and there's no way to hand the kid a check immediately. That's what the board asked for. And we wrote back in our report and said, politely, we can't do that. We even looked at things like Zelle and Venmo. We can't do that either. You can't link the county's bank account to Zelle or Venmo. But we continue to explore creative ways of getting the kid their money back. We worked with the auditor controller in detail on this report. All the departments are mentioned in that report that we had interaction with. What do you do for all sorts of things, whether it's a check or financial literacy? So we want to get the kid back their money. There's no reason to write a check if we've still got their cash. We hand it to them when they get their property back.
Yeah, I
And did
guess
that answer your question? I'm not sure.
Yeah, no, I've just got, yeah, you are. I guess the question I'm having, I'm looking at 712 letters were mailed.
So far.
76 of them were returned. So I'm looking at that return rate. It looks like that you may not be able to get, that might not improve substantially, right? And then 47 responses. I'm wondering, are you collecting also email addresses? I'm imagining when folks, when they return home, they may be moving, people's addresses may change, and so the information that you collect in that form could very well change, right? Which may explain why 76 letters are returned. are you also sort of like notifying youth via email? I mean, that seems to be more stationary, more permanent, right, than a physical address. And so are they also notified electronically to say, hey, we're trying to reach out to you and to return property or funds to you? Have that happen as well?
I don't know if we collect email addresses as part of the kids' PDJ.
Might be a good idea. I think
That's something we'll look at it. And may not be a legal issue at all, but I'll check and also if there's some legal issue about collecting email addresses as well. And whether
this seems much more efficient to kind of
Yeah.
also use an email address, because I know that they check their emails rather often, right? And so if the physical email address seems to be a bit of a challenge, I think perhaps adding an email address or line on that simple form might help alleviate some of the non-response or return response. Thank you.
And we don't want to be stuck in the analog age either. We want to be modern and keep up with the kids as the kids keep up with technology, for sure.
Commissioner Terry?
Hi, just one question about the financial literacy classes. When the youth get their bank accounts open, will they have access while they're in the facility to check their accounts online, kind of as part of their education around their finances?
I can speak to Barry J. That's the one we've done it so far. And there's a coordinator there who will provide access to them online, a controlled access from a certain laptop or a certain cell phone. That was another one of the stumbling blocks. We made sure that's in a controlled area where the kid only has access to that and can't use that laptop or cell phone for some other purpose. So yes, they will. They will not get their debit cards. We're asking them, where do you want your debit card to go? Because they can get a debit card. Some of the kids did not have an address to give to us, so they used the address of Barry J. Neidorf. Again, we haven't been to the other facilities yet for the banking part. For those kids, Rise Credit Union is going to withhold the debit card, and either we will go get all those debit cards and hold them for the kid, because we don't want it mailed to Barry J and potentially get lost in the mail, so to speak. So the kids were told that in advance. You won't get your debit card right away. We can send it to your address if you want. We can give it to your parent if you want, or we'll hold it back. But what Rise said is for those who use the address of Barry J, they will flag that address and they will hold them back, and probation can go get those if that's what the kid wants. But we won't let the kid have his debit card in the living unit because you never know where it's going to end up.
And then just my last question, going to the release of funds, are families involved in the process? So are families notified about the funds, and is there a way to just work with the families?
If we don't get a response by mail or we get a bad address, we're going to try to track them down. So if there's a parent or guardian that we can work with, certainly we'll do that. And we'll notify the kid also, if we can find the kid. The other gentleman mentioned, we're not having so far a lot of success with the addresses. And that could be maybe we send out the older addresses first. I'm not sure. The more current residents would have a more current address. So yes, we'll work with the family as long as that family is in some way a guardian for that youth.
Yeah, because and I'm trying to understand the process. If someone's under 18, can it be released to their family? Does it have to wait until the youth is released? The family can't access the funds before then?
It can be with the kid's permission. The kid is assigning a password when we open the bank accounts. They're given a password saying, don't forget it. Don't tell anybody.
No, I'm sorry. I'm talking about the confiscated.
Oh,
Yeah, because I'm
property.
like if someone under 18 has their stuff confiscated, but their families are there, they're visiting, does it have to wait until they're released?
It can be given to a legal guardian or parent. It does not have to wait until they're released, because some kids do want their items given to their parents. They may have an iPhone or a pair of Air Jordan shoes or something, and they'll tell their mom, take this, we can give it to them. And we'd prefer that because we don't want to store it. It takes up a lot of space.
Just one last question. Wondering if any of the communication that you all are sending out is also in Spanish?
I don't know. We typically do send it out in both English and Spanish, but I will check.
Yeah, I think that confirmation would be helpful.
Yep.
Commissioner Meredith? Okay. Well, thank you. Wendy, do we have any written or live public comments for item 3?
I don't believe we had any written public comments on item 3. I'm looking at Janae for confirmation. Any public comments on financial literacy and the return of confiscated funds just on this issue? And you can come up to the podium if you're here in public, in person. And
you'll see me
if
back
you're
in a month.
online, use the raise your hand function or press *3. Again, if you're watching on YouTube, there's not a way to make public comment. You need to sign in on WebEx. In order to do that, you go to our agenda. So go to poc.lacounty.gov, click on meetings and agenda, and the link to the WebEx is at the top of the agenda. You'll have 2 minutes and you can begin, although I don't know where the timer is going to be happening. I think Jennifer is doing the timer over here. So please begin.
Hi, I'm Ms. Tyson. I am the supervisor with SEIU Bargaining Unit 702. And I think that every human being that has a clear understanding and working knowledge could benefit from a financial literacy program. I think this is an amazing program. We've had it in different ways, but to come in and be more direct and clear and structured, I think it'll benefit our population for sure, right? However, one of my concerns is the behavior. How do you make sure the kids that are interested in really want this knowledge can get it when you have kids acting out? For example, you take this program to LP, how many kids are really receptive of getting this program? How can they get it? If kids are acting out, there's no accountability for their behavior, staffing is very seriously low. How do we get this information to them? The kids are aware that there's no consequences, and you have 10 kids in the day room. 6 may really be interested in this program. They really need it. Their parents are struggling. They need the knowledge, right, to break the generational curses. How do we guarantee that they get the program? It feels like you have suits saying, oh, what an important program, let's do it. But what the reality is, these programs are very difficult to make sure to push through in our halls, in our facilities, when there's no structure, there's no accountability for their behavior. I just want you guys to make it make sense. Because it kind of feels like people are sitting in a bubble. Like, oh yeah, of course this is an amazing program. But what are we gonna do to make sure it happens when you don't have staffing? There's no accountability for negative behavior. I just want us to come back to earth and be realistic about the expectations. And again, as a supervisor, we are going on 3 years without a contract.
Deputy Probation Officer Pettis, one thing I have high respect for Mr. Smythe. I've known him for just about 2004, but we tend to agree on a couple of things. And one is that you cannot teach financial literacy. Probation knows when a minor is released. I say just make it part of the release process. Go through IDC and the process. The guy that slept, let him get his money back. This accumulation of $549,170, this comes over a period of 20 years. Mr. Smythe has a background in probation. He has in being a college professor. He has a background in auditor controller. Why does the county steal $549,000 from the minors that we're supposed to be taking care of? Now I want to turn around and say, okay, now we want to teach them financial literacy after we steal $500,000 from them. This plan would work at headquarters, which is about 1.7 miles away from Los Padrinos. At headquarters, Mr. Smythe could email 10 people. They show up in the conference room, get something done. At Los Padrinos, you can't call it unexpected. The kids basically have said, we run this. At headquarters, you have order. There's a system in there. At Los Padrinos, there's no structure. Headquarters, you respect authority. What's happening at the halls, they don't respect the authority of the officers. You can't get a lot done. We had a superintendent who walked in and said she was a superintendent and they assaulted her. They don't care about a title. They really don't. We've had the commissioners go out and see what's going on at these facilities. At headquarters, you got something to lose. You might lose your job, something like that. At the halls, you have nothing to lose. Administration rewards bad behavior. If there's an escape, assault, dropping drugs, those all for those involved. Well, what about the kids in the other unit doing what they're supposed to do? And they're saying the pizzas go to the people who are acting up.
That's your time. Thank you, Mr. Pettis. Morning, Isabella.
Before we continue, please be mindful that we are on item number 3, which is the funding and the return of funds.
Good morning, Isabella Solomon with the Anti-Recidivism Coalition. And just yesterday, I had a conversation with a group of youth regarding the financial literacy that was offered inside. And I hadn't even checked the agenda yet. I just wanted to share a bit of positivity on this and applaud it because a few of the boys, I'm not exactly sure what facility they were at, but they were so grateful for that opportunity. They talked about how nice it felt to have someone who actually knew what they were talking about guide them into financial literacy, and how they would have appreciated more of that if given the opportunity. So I just thought it was important to share how much they appreciated it and how well of a program, at least for their experience, was, and how hopefully we could see more of that. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Eric Walton. I just wanted to say also as well, the financial literacy program is very good. It's what our young people need throughout all of our facilities. But just as it has been addressed, the various concern is that you're unable to actually facilitate a lot of these programs more expanding worldwide when you have a safety issue. When the board, county supervisors imposed a hiring freeze, you impacted everything. You impacted every level of service, every level of safety. You can't have effective programming when you basically impose a hiring freeze and create a staffing issue throughout every facility within probation. So at the end of the day, it's great to have programs, but if you can't have safety and order within the facility, then you can't actually have good programs for our young people. When you eliminate programs, just like the sports program, you got rid of that. You got rid of the culinary arts program. You got rid of the yoga program. You got rid of all these programs and then turned around and gave it to other community-based organizations to make it seem like we didn't do anything. We did these things for years. And for the longest, everyone acts like nothing happened. This is unacceptable. I watched young people be successful in a lot of probation programs. Matter of fact, when I play high school football, a lot of the young men that I play high school football on my championship team came from the Camp Kilpatrick sports program. So I saw how effective probation was. And for us to have this issue with staffing that was not created by us, that was created by higher ups, by putting in hiring freeze, this is what caused it. This is the ripple effect. And to strong arm us for 3 years to not have a contract is unacceptable. So we hopefully will be able to go ahead and get this through and be able to get our contract and also be able to have proper staffing in facilities.
Thanks, Mr. Walton. There are no other public commenters in the room, and we don't have any public commenters online. So I'll give it back to you, Commissioner Mundo.
Commissioners, any further questions or comments? So listening to the comments, it's clear that there are some concerns about safety at the halls, and there should be. It's not an agenda item, but agenda item 5 fits it. So when agenda 5 comes, I will ask a question that will give you segue for that. And I hope to hear all your concerns under that agenda. So if we can get to agenda 4, then we can line you up, and we want to hear from you. I'm very happy that supervisors are here. I hope to see staff here also. So if you bear with us, let's get to 4, and on 5, the microphone will be yours. 2 minutes apiece. Thank you. So with that, we'll move on to agenda item 4. We will discuss and take possible action on updates on probation's progress with 2 other recent board motions, specifically access to menstrual products and moving post-disposition youth out of Los Padrinos and into probation camps, placements, and community placements. Both board motions and related reports have been attached to the agenda. Chief Deputy Epps is here, and she is going to be assisted by Director Angela Walker. Chief Epps.
Thank you. But June 25th, 2024, on the motion of supervisors, the probation department was instructed to discuss our compliance with 730 and AB 1810 regarding.
Ms. Epps, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I think they need you to speak in your mic.
Oh, okay. Thank you. So on June 25th, 2004, on the motion of Supervisor Solis, the Probation Department was requested to show our compliance with AB 732 and AB 1810 regarding access to menstrual products. I will summarize our response on that and then take any questions. And so the areas that we were to address, and I'll just go through them and then discuss where we are briefly. Review existing policies to ensure compliance aligned with AB 732, availability and accessibility of feminine hygiene products, and that youth had options to obtain either pads or tampons, and products are provided. They're readily accessible without having to ask in the girls' unit restrooms. The issue of security searches, we do the pat-down searches. We do not routinely do strip searches unless there's just cause. And per the policy, the superintendent has to approve that before any type of strip search takes place. There has to be a justifiable reason that we go to a strip search. Ensure barriers to the products are removed, and as I stated, those products are available without barriers in the unit restrooms, and we do provide the option of pads and tampons. To ensure that staff follow AB 732, the policies at this time are sufficient. And during our hiring training program, that is included in our orientation, and that is included as part of training, the policy was issued. One thing, there are annual policy reviews. I can tell you that we are working to strengthening those policies. We have recently worked with our policy unit to develop an annual matrix to ensure that every policy that needs to be inspected or that needs to go out annually, that is done, and how that record keeping is done is going to be improved as well. So we recommended that at this time, we don't need any changes to the policies because we feel that they're sufficient. And as I said, the training takes place when we have new employees as part of their probation, their JC, Juvenile Corrections Officer Corps Academy, or their Probation Officer Corps Academy. So that's just a summary, and I'll take any questions.
Commissioners, any questions? Concerns, comments? Okay, seeing none. Wendy, do we have any public comment?
I don't believe we have any written public comment on this item. We did have 2 hands up on the last item, and we'll call on them to make public comment. Sorry, WebEx changes the interface every time we use it, and I apologize for that. So we will allow those 2 public commenters. Also, if there's anyone in the room who'd like to make public comment on this specific issue of access to menstrual products or the expediting transfers of post-disposition youth out of transfer is the wrong word to use. Movement. It's the same. Oh, did you just do the report on menstrual products? Do you want to have Ms. Epps do the reports on both?
Actually, Senior Director Walker's doing the report to update on expediting the transfer.
It's under one agenda item, so let's go. That sounds better. Thank you for correcting me. Ms. Walker, you're welcome to join at the podium or up here at the table, whichever you prefer.
Good morning, Angela Walker, Senior Director for Probation. And I'll be giving the update on the Speeding Up Youth Movement out of Los Padrinos board motion. The motion was filed on, the motion was made by the board on July 23rd, 2024 by Supervisors Hahn and Solis. The motion directed the Probation Department to work with identified partners to analyze the information related to youth ordered to community-based suitable placement, the Dorothy Kirby Center, probation camp, and secure youth treatment facility to determine the average length of time that they remain in Los Padrinos following the court order, the percentage of youth whose transfers exceeded 3 days, and also to look at the reasons for the delays. We were also to make recommendations and on how to improve the efficiency of the transfers and report back in 60 days. So probation worked with the Department of Youth Development, Department of Mental Health, the Department of Health Services, the Public Defender, and the alternate Public Defender. So we convened a meeting and discussed the process that is related to transfer of youth, the things that occur for each agency before the youth are transferred to their final disposition facility. We discussed alternatives that could be implemented to help make that process more efficient. We drafted a response, communicated via email and telephone calls to fine-tune input from each of these agencies, and submitted our final response on September 23rd. So the time frame that was looked at was July 1st, 2023 through August 31st, 2024. And during that time period, there were 842 youth that were ordered out of home dispositions. Those dispositions that I mentioned, the community-based suitable placement, Dorothy Kirby Center, probation camp, and secure youth treatment facility. And of the 842, 393 were ordered suitable placement, 153 were ordered Dorothy Kirby Center, 235 ordered probation camp, and 61 ordered secure youth treatment facility. From the data, we found that the average length of stay for those ordered suitable placement was 5.3 days, 15 days for those ordered Dorothy Kirby Center, 8 days for those ordered probation camp, and 0 for those ordered secure youth treatment facility. So the youth that are ordered secure youth treatment facility are normally transferred to that facility following their court order. The reasons for the delays for suitable placement we found were challenges with finding placement for hard to place youth. So sometimes their offense makes it more difficult. There's limited places for them to go. Youth that are, excuse me, youth that are being replaced. So a youth that has had a placement prior order and they're being replaced to a different facility. And when the court orders a specific placement. For Dorothy Kirby Center, the main reason for the delay where we found was the capacity at the facility. So when the time of the order, the facility was at capacity, so there was no additional bed space at the time. And for probation camp, the highest reason for delay was medical. They were being held for medical reasons, and then the camp assessment unit staffing. So we submitted recommendations in the board response, and with the collaborative input, we decided that contacting the attorney of record for youth refusing to participate in any portion of the clearance process, including medical, to help facilitate engagement of the youth through the post-dispositional clearance process would be beneficial. And although refusal of the youth did not show as one of the reasons for delay, we knew that it was a reason, but we did not capture it in our data. So we are going to refine how we capture that information, and it usually is related to medical, where youth may refuse to participate in some portion of the medical procedure. So health services is now going to provide that with their information that's given to probation staff so that we can track that more efficiently. Transporting youth to camp with outside medical appointments scheduled 4 or more days from the court order. That's another recommendation. So prior to this conversation, we would hold youth in juvenile hall that had medical appointments within a week. So our camp facility does have the capacity to bring the youth back down for medical appointments. So we're going to kind of shorten that timeline. Cross-training staff in our camp headquarters assessment unit to increase capacity for completing clearances, commencing on September 26th. So part of our issue was we had staff that were unavailable in our camp headquarters unit, which delayed some of the assessments being done. So we have now, on September 26th, we cross-trained some additional staff. So we should be able to, which is going to increase our capacity for doing the assessment. Relocating camp headquarters staff to Los Padrinos Juvenile Hall to expedite the assessment process. So we have, as of October 7th, we have assigned a staff from camp headquarters staff to be on site at Los Padrinos daily. They're currently housed at our Berry J facility. So having them on site should increase efficiency as well. Continue health services process of completing a portion of their medical clearance once the youth arrive at a camp facility or Dorothy Kirby Center. This had already been implemented on September 12th by health services. So things such as immunizations, they're able to go ahead and let the youth transfer to their final facility and then complete those processes once at the camp facility or Dorothy Kirby Center. And prior to this, they were holding them back at Los Padrinos. So far to date, we have cross-trained our camp headquarters staff. We've relocated a staff to Los Padrinos on a daily basis from camp headquarters. And we have reached out to reconvene the group of partner agencies to further discuss implementation of the other strategy. And that is the summary. Any questions?
Questions or concerns, commissioners? Commissioner Kokani?
Thanks. Just one question. Wondering if I know that this report back, I think you said was provided on, was it August 23rd?
No, September 23rd.
Oh, September. So there hasn't been a ton of time to see if there's been an impact on the average number of days that a young person is waiting for transfer. Is that fair to say? Okay. I just wanted to know if there had been any change given the implementation of cross-training, movement of staff, but it's probably too early to tell.
Yes, too early.
So I have a question. If I look at today's POP and it has 40 kids waiting, how do I find out how long those kids have been waiting to be moved?
We would have to evaluate each youth to find out when the court order was made.
So that's not being tracked daily. There's not like a little tracking that just kind of adds it up and you look at it and say, okay, youth so-and-so has been here 30 days, 20 days.
Yes, camp headquarters keeps that data because they communicate with the partner agencies that are involved in the clearance process on a daily basis. So there is a daily sheet that is circulated between the agencies.
So that's circulated and that would tell me that Youth Johnson has been waiting 10 days and it's followed by Youth Lopez who's been waiting 14 days.
I believe camp headquarters could give that data daily.
Ms. Epps?
There's also a requirement. So if someone gets ordered into short-term treatment, you have to every 14 days report the kid's status. We did a referral. This referral was accepted, not accepted. We have a pending delivery date, and you have to justify. I believe it's the same unless there's a different process here in LA County, which they're pretty much the same. To notify the court whenever there's an order for suitable place, be it residential treatment, be it camp, or be it like a short-term treatment program. You have to notify every 14 days for pending delivery and justification why the delivery was.
Yes, it's for camp as well.
So the
15-day
15-day
review.
reports are tracked also.
Yes.
Commissioner Prater?
I have a quick question. It might be a silly question, but is this data that we can view like on some sort of dashboard to share Mundo's question about how can we get data that sort of like tracks how long it takes someone to sort of transfer from LP? Like, is there like a dashboard that we can view that sort of like helps us sort of track that information, or would that be helpful in any way?
That would be great. We don't have a dashboard, but we do have the data being tracked, and it's not something that is available now.
Well, I think it is being reported back to the board regularly as a part of this board motion. Yes, I mean, you reported it once and you have to report it again in the board motion. So we will be getting, it's not as timely as I think what you're asking for in terms of like a regular update, but we should be getting another update about the, I don't want to misspeak, Ms. Walker. There will be another update to this board motion in a certain number of days.
The motion did say regular updates, but
Yes.
it didn't have a designated time period for the regular update. So
Have
I would
you
have to-
decided what that means? I mean, not you, but you, the department?
no.
Okay. So that is a question we could help get an answer to about how regular the board is expecting those updates to be, because those are public updates. So you would also receive them.
Commissioner Kokani?
Of the, I don't remember what the population is at LP, the like sub 300 young folks who are there. How many young folks currently, if you're able to share, are post-dispo awaiting transfer today?
I don't have that information.
Wendy does. I 18?
think it's 18 waiting for placement or return. 18 awaiting placement. I may be off. There were 6 new orders, and I want to say 2 awaiting return to campus. Like I said, I'm just going from memory. And this is the numbers yesterday. And this morning when I checked, the pop is 272 LP.
I'll just say that's striking, Deputy Chief Epps's memory, because I am looking at the numbers and every number that she said is correct.
Commissioner Terry?
Are some of those who are awaiting placement, is it because of the placement challenges? I think that was one of the categories you said, nowhere to go for some of those young people.
So I said that there's challenges with finding placement sometimes with the youth that are, their disposition is for certain offenses, or youth that have been to multiple placements. So they're being interviewed by, several facilities to determine where they would be best served. I don't know if that's any of the population that is there today.
Has there been any progress made, I guess, or are there, because I'm assuming this is going to keep happening where there'll be youth in that situation. I'm just curious to know how you guys are addressing that, or if there's leads. Are you finding facilities that maybe are more amenable than others? Just curious about what that looks like.
So our placement bureau does meet with facilities. So if they find a youth that is difficult to place, they do a roundtable. They meet with various facilities to start trying to facilitate that transfer so that it doesn't take as long. The average stay for those youth is 5.3 days. So they really do actively start to engage facilities to find a placement for youth.
After returning from their dispo, are they returned to the unit they started off with that morning? The post-dispo kids, do they just go back to the regular unit that they're in?
Yes, there's no pre-placement program or pre-placement designated unit. So yes, they go back to the regular unit.
So if that youth goes back into a unit that may be chaotic and they misbehave, is there a chance that they'll go back to court before they even get transferred out?
It's contingent on what happened, on what happens.
And regarding the report back, what would be a reasonable time period between reports and manageable?
I think in order to really see if there's an impact with the strategies that we recommended, we wouldn't want to go back before 60 days, but I don't know what the department would decide to do or if the board will direct us to come back before that time.
I'm just thinking about capacity and ability. I mean, if you, because ideally, the quicker the turnaround is, the better monitoring there is. But if you're not able to do it every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks, every 4 weeks, it would be nice to know what a reasonable expectation would be. And to set one, I'm surprised it hasn't been set. So just to say, okay, we can do this. This is rolling.
I would say 60 days only because if you're going to out-of-home placement now, be it a camp, residential treatment, or short-term residential treatment program, odds are there's some indicator of complex care needs because under the guidelines that changed with the Family First Services Act, we have to do things on the front end to prevent you from going to placement with the intervention prevention programs. So if you're at a place where you're going to placement, it's because there's a higher threshold of needs. So that would give you the 60 days. So even with the 5-point possible, give or take 5 days, right? That the types of placements that you're looking for now have a shortage of beds. There's a shortage across the spectrum for placements because of the changes that happened first with the continuum care reform. It took us from the levels, the RCL rated levels for placements, to you having to provide a certain threshold of services in the placement. And so when FSP came, now you have to have a certain baseline of services to address those needs and have it staffed a certain way. So if you're going to placement, it's an issue of beds. It's an issue now of finding the suitable services. Every placement kid has to go through what's called a qualified individual. That person or entity has to be outside of the department. They have to confirm that this youth is eligible and suitable to go to care on that same level. So I would say it's 60 days because of those things that are involved. The last thing I'll finish on is there are also some things where if there you meet a certain threshold of care, you're eligible for what's called a 1-to-1 placement or a 2-to-1 placement. I would say in the time since I've been here, which I came December 18th, 2023, there's only been one, and we found out about this one last week, which is called a level 1 review that the chief has had to sign. So when you've waited for a certain amount of time to go to placement, which is considered excessive, the department is required to do a written report, and the department head has to sign, not a designee, and there has to be a reason for the excessive wait. And we've only had one of those since I started in December 2023.
The reason I ask is that there are a lot of listeners today that are actually working in the space of alternative placements. And in the county, it may be time to have something so probation can get relief from these more complex cases. And the youth can actually be sent somewhere temporarily maybe, but having that information, maybe the county can act or other entities can step up and say, hey, maybe we can have an alternative. And of course, I know it's restricted by law sometimes, but yeah.
And that is a good idea, but you are required to look at the least restrictive care, starting with residential family service or RFA, then going up to placement. We have to place in a community care and licensing placement, or we have to place in a placement that we pay for at our expense that's maintained. That would be like, say, Dorothy Kirby, that would be our residential-based treatment programs, or there has to be the BSCC camps funding for any camps that we do maintain, like our East camps. So the barrier to that would be having to have the STRTPs that are licensed and approved through community care and licensing.
And I'm just suggesting the temporary, that little space between this vote and the real placement. So, yeah. Commissioners? Okay, Wendy, any public comment?
Thank you. If there's any public comment in the room, please come up to the microphone. We're going to take public comment from Lena Mallett and Sir online. Lena, we will open your microphone, and you're welcome to give public comment on this issue or the previous issue of financial literacy, since we missed your hand. You may need to unmute yourself, Lena.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. You can begin. Thank you.
Thank you. Lena Mallett with the Children's Defense Fund, and this is pertaining to the financial literacy item earlier. I'm really grateful for today's presentation and for the work that's being done to rectify the years-long robbery of young folks who are coming into the system. And in response to several of the in-person comments, I want to reground everyone listening that programming is not a privilege that can be decided with discretion. It's a basic human right inscribed in Title 15 of BSCC's minimum standards, which are state-sanctioned standards. Not once did Robert Smythe indicate that any of the young people attending the financial literacy program were violent or disruptive. In fact, they seemed engaged, excited, and grateful to be met with proper education and basic respect. The lack of staffing is not because of the hiring freeze. The probation department currently has hundreds of vacant positions collecting dust and millions of unspent funds. The issue is that the staff, the youth supervisor not showing up to work. This is not an issue for young people to solve, and certainly not one for them to be punished for. Again, grateful for the work being done and hope to see language access expanded, and also hope to see creative action taken to support young folks leaving who are experiencing housing insecurity. Thank you.
Thanks, Lena. And the other public commenter has put their hand down. Is there anybody else online for public comment? Okay. Okay, sir, welcome back to the queue. We're unmuting you and you can begin with your 2 minutes. You may need to unmute yourself.
Am I unmuted? Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you. Please
Thank
begin.
you so much. Thank you so much, Probation Oversight Commission and all the people in the room. Ms. Mallette shared a lot of what I wanted to say. There is, with financial literacy, it's very, the perspective of our facilitators is critical, right? I didn't hear about education, how education is looked at within these financial systems, right? Because we know that from Ivy League schools to trade schools, like how is education looked at, but also what is being taught about occupation, about the jobs, right? Because like Lena said, that's the point that we're talking about. CEO, I'll leave it right there. Culture, education, and occupation, right? We are the works of God, and we do God's work, and so we want to make sure that everyone feels valued. Everyone. There's high rises being built all throughout Los Angeles, and we shared with the Board of Supervisors yesterday that those need to be for the restored oppressed and for the transformed oppressors. Understanding that a lot of our systems have been oppressive and they have to change. And so to reward that, rather than the continuing of blaming and pointing fingers, let's open up the doors. Let's set the children and the officers free. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. That's the end of public comment. You're welcome, Ms. Davila. You want to?
Back on the post-dispo, because that was financial literacy.
Or
Okay. So my concern, I agree with post-dispo, they need to be released as soon as possible, but I think what's not being mentioned here is that they depleted the field. So the supervisors and I think there was kind of a play on words, the whole cross training, when in reality, it's the supervisors that are doing everything, because we have, if we're lucky, 1 deputy, which before had 4 or 5 deputies. So that to say that that's not the reason for some of the delays is irresponsible. Furthermore, for those minors that are getting, young people that are getting released or that are not getting released before they even get in the doors and putting on, there's not even DPOs in the field to supervise them. So how irresponsible is that for the community when we are as supervisors that we put on everything? The burden has fallen on everything on us. So reports are not getting done, supervision's not being done. We have been working without a contract. We have been disrespected. We have been bullied. We have been told we have to just get the work done. Do the best you can. So when there's a delay because of kids, it's not because we don't want to do it. It's because we don't have the deals to do it. And we are one person. And we have held it down in the field. We have held it down in the institutions. The supervisors have been the backbone, and they still will not acknowledge us. They still will not give us our money. They will still not give us our contract. And we have offered, we go in there every weekend and volunteer to work overtime in camps, to work overtime in the institution, the juvenile halls. We're not forced to be there like the DPOs, but any given day, if you show up on a weekend, there will be supervisors there because we lead by example, not because we're forced to be there, because we want to see us succeed and pass BSCC. But they don't want to see us succeed. They don't care that we are struggling to pay our bills. And that's all I got to say, because I'm going off a tangent. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioners, concerns, questions? Okay, with that, we will move on to, well, actually, I do have one thing to say about literacy and financial. The thing that wasn't mentioned is managing your taxes. Really important. Less taxes, more money in your pocket. So, my 2 cents. So, agenda item number 5. We will be discussing and taking possible action on reports from the Los Angeles County Office of Inspector General on its recent reports on and collaborative work with the PLC. OIG's 2 recent reports are attached to the agenda, and Assistant Inspector General Eric Bates is here to present on this item. Mr. Bates, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good morning, commissioners and everyone here. I think maybe it's important to just go over how our report started, especially since we have a new commissioner here. My office is tasked to review the probation department's policies and activities in 5 particular areas, and that's from a Los Angeles County and Probation Department settlement with the California Department of Justice of a lawsuit. And from that lawsuit came a settlement agreement and a detailed plan as to what should occur. So my office reviews 5 particular areas. One is the use of force, which includes review of incidents and cameras capturing the incidents, OC spray, PREA, which is the Prison Rape Elimination Act, room confinements, and activities. And the report I'll be discussing now was for the period of last July 1st to December 31st, 2023. We are finalizing our report now for January 1, 2024 to July 2024. But this is dealing with last year, the last 6 months. And I won't discuss, even though it's in the report, and I would like everyone to go on our website, LA County OIG, and you can read the full report. I'm not going to go through all the specifics. I'll just go over the summary of it. But I won't discuss Central because Central is no longer housing youth. So I'll just stick to LP and Barry J. So the detailed plan requires all use of force incidents not accepted by the department's Internal Affairs Bureau to be timely reviewed by FIRST. And FIRST is the Force Intervention Response Team, and it is a separate body of probation staff to review uses of force incidents. Timeliness is important, and by policy, they are to receive their packets, the use of force incident packets within 7 days. And within that 7 days are the staff's writing of the report as to what happened and the director's review of those reports. And if the director feels that there was possible policy violations, it is sent to Internal Affairs, and then a copy is sent to FIRST. And I believe the rationale is for FIRST to be an independent review to see if there are any gaps in policies, patterns that they're seeing, things that can be addressed that may not be specifically addressed by an Internal Affairs investigation. So we've been monitoring that this is our 5th report. And unfortunately, in all of the previous reports, there's been a lack of compliance of timely reviews by FIRST, either getting to FIRST within the 7 days. And you can look at the report, there's been significant backlog of cases where sometimes they don't get to FIRST for over 300 days. So that's been a continuing problem. This reporting period, we found that only 6% of the use of force incidents were timely reported to FIRST. So that's a continuing concern. Also within the use of force, as I mentioned, is the capturing of the incidents by cameras. It's important that there is an independent, unbiased capturing of an event, such as what a camera can provide. And under the detailed plan, at least 90% of the cameras in juvenile facilities must be operational, in use, and provide sufficient coverage to capture use of force incidents. In our review, so what that basically means is they have to be working, they have to provide sufficient coverage, so they can't just be focused on one little corner and you don't see everything as what's going on, and they must be used appropriately. So at LP, in our review, we found that of the sample of use of force incidents, all but one of the incidents were captured. So there was compliance at LP. So that was good to see that there was only one incident that fell outside of that requirement. Unfortunately, at Barry J, we found that it was out of compliance and only found that 63% of the incidents reviewed had video recordings of the incident. The next aspect of the cameras are they properly used? So it's one thing to have a camera record an incident, but what happens then? Are the probation staff reviewing that and properly determining whether or not there was a policy violation? And at LP, we found, well, let me back up. So under the detailed plan for compliance, there needs to be properly used video recordings to determine policy violations in 90% of the use of force incidents. In our review of LP, we found that the department properly reviewed only 83% of the sampled incidents, and at Barry J, only 63% of the use of force incidents. So they were both determined to be out of compliance in that area. The next area that we review is OC spray. And under the detailed plan, it requires that there's documentation whether or not staff complies with policies and state law regarding decontamination after the use of OC spray in at least 90% of all uses of OC spray on youths in juvenile hall facilities. We found that overall the department was out of compliance and that they followed proper protocol and policy in only 57% of the cases at Barry J as well as LP. I will skip to PREA, which again is the Prison Rape Elimination Act. And under the detailed plan, it requires the county will use PREA certified auditors from the Office of Inspector General to monitor compliance on ensuring that privacy curtains are properly installed and consistently maintained in the bathrooms of all units. And I'm sure we all can understand the importance of that and privacy. And I'm happy to say that consistently the department has been in compliance with PREA in those areas of providing proper privacy. There were as you'll see in the report, there were a number. I believe at 2 of the camps, there were some issues with that, but that's because of fixed walls that are there that need to be removed, and that is in the department's plans, but apparently the resources for that were diverted to deal with opening LP. So we are hoping that that will be addressed soon. But in the meantime, to ensure safety, because PREA is also, it's not just privacy, but it's also that kids do not get attacked while they're in the bathroom. The department has reported that they have staff that monitor those areas to make sure that there aren't any blind spots, which we did see. Also, part of PREA was opposite gender announcements. So that's when there's an opposite gender coming into a unit, into the facility, that they announce themselves, obviously to protect the youth's privacy rights. And again, I'm happy to report that we found compliance in that consistently, that there are opposite gender announcements by the department. Room confinements. Under the detailed plan, the county must create an internal process approved by the monitor, the Department of Justice monitor, to maintain and improve documentation related to and monitoring of youth who are placed in room confinement, including the development of individualized plans and the provision of programming, recreation, exercise, and religious services. Our review found that the department was out of compliance in that area, that the department still has not implemented an approved internal process to track room confinements provide prompt notification of room confinements that violate policies and state law, and document remedial measures and provide our office data regarding that. Also related to room confinements, the detailed plan requires that the process includes mechanisms for providing prompt notice to the juvenile hall superintendent of instances of room confinement that do not comply with the law. And we found that consistently we found that the department is in compliance of that when there is a situation where room confinements go over the legal limit, the department staff is consistently notifying the hall superintendent, and they are taking care of that. So that was good to see. Activities, which also includes programming. The detailed plan requires that department staff document and log any denial of required activities by providing the staff member's reason for denial, the signature of the staff member, and the validation of the superintendent of the facility. We found that the department was in compliance, that in all the facilities, staff documented findings that a youth posed a threat to the safety and security of the facility in writing in 100% of the incidents. It also requires that the department provide required activities for at least 93% of youths at LP and Barry J who have not been found to pose a threat to the safety or security of the facility. And there, unfortunately, we found LP out of compliance, that only 72% of the eligible youths to receive the required activities. And in the fourth quarter, we found only 74% of eligible youth received required activities as required. And finally, I will say the detailed plan also requires that required activities are not denied as a form of punishment, discipline, or retaliation. And I'm happy to say that we have found and consistently have found in our reports that the department has not denied activities as a form of punishment or retaliation. So that was good to see that that's continuing. We have no reports to believe that that was occurring. And that pretty much is the summary. Grievances also. Grievances, the plan requires that the county implement a revised grievance policy, and 90% of grievances are resolved in accordance with the approved policy. And we found that they're in partial compliance because they are developing kiosks to deal with the grievances. And unfortunately, that's been a continuing issue. We've heard that that's happening, and it apparently, as we're told, involves vendors that are not, well, there's challenges with vendors and whatnot. So that is something we continue to monitor because we're very much interested in getting the kiosks up and running, because that will help, that'll help a lot in the grievances. And as far as the quarterly report, which is January of this year to March, as you'll see in the conclusion of that report, we really had a hard time getting the necessary data from the department to actually make a accurate report on that. It will be included in our next report, a more detailed report, but we've had challenges, and my staff works really directly with the department staff that handles the collection of information. And unfortunately, as I'm told, it's just a matter of the staff being moved, and then new staff comes in and they don't really understand what we need. And it's provided a bit of a challenge in getting the necessary information. I don't think it's a sense of them not wanting to provide it, because, as I said, my staff and probation has worked closely in getting that information to actually help develop how to collect it. So I think it's just a matter of new people coming in and not really knowing what we need versus what other agencies are asking as far as information. But we continue to work with them, and that's why we stress the importance of a computerized system which will collect the information and spit it out and give it to us timely without having to deal with someone trying to figure out what exactly we need. So that is, that's all I have, and I am open for questions.
Thank you. Commissioners, unless there's an objection, would you mind if I ask the first couple questions? So the 36 use of force, is that the information on page 9 of your report?
Okay, what was your question?
Is that the 36 that you were talking about?
Yes.
Okay, so
Yes.
the way this reads, it suggests that the Internal Affairs Bureau receives reports before the first team. Is that
Correct.
correct?
Correct.
So the 36 they received, only 18 were use of force.
Correct.
So the figure on the bottom, 2 out of the 36, shouldn't that be 18 if it's only the use of force?
Well, they don't, and maybe that was my mistake in saying the referrals are only a use of force. They're not only uses of force that get referred.
Okay. What delay occurs when the Internal Affairs Bureau gets it first? I mean,
I missed the beginning of that, Chairman.
what's the length of delay that happens when they get it first, than the first team?
The length of delay when the
I
Internal
mean,
Affairs
Yeah,
gets
what
it?
role do they play in the delay of getting these to the
I
first team?
don't know that they do. We don't look at that. We're looking at the time it takes to get to first. I have not come across or heard that there's a delay of it getting to Internal Affairs. And I don't know if you know, but our office does monitor the Internal Affairs intake process, so I've never heard that as being an issue.
Okay. What percentage of these use of force were attacks on staff?
That I don't know. I do not have that
Thank you.
number.
Commissioners?
We do come across them, though. I will say that. I do see videos, and there are, I don't want to say it's rare. It does occur, but I don't have an actual number.
Okay, so rare in the sense.
No,
of-
I said it's not rare.
Not rare that they're being, that
Yeah,
staff are being
absolutely.
attacked.
No, I do see instances where staff are attacked, so it's not a rare occurrence, but I can't give you a number of it.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, Commissioner Merritt?
I know. Yeah, I understand what he's saying is that there are assaults on staff, and we did have a motion some way back that we're supposed to get a monthly report about the number of assaults on staff and youth on youth assaults too. So he's not discounting the assaults on staff.
Oh,
so you
no,
know.
not at all, not at all.
The only question I have is about the cameras at Silmar. And I know this report's a little outdated, but there was a percentage that they were not available. And I was
The
curious.
problem with Barry J is, and that's why they've failed or not in compliance each time, is because their cameras, they didn't have a number of cameras. And apparently that was in the works of getting more cameras. And there was a problem with getting chips, I think, for the cameras. So there was a technical problem for them getting cameras. And then also, as I was told there, the cameras there were never set up to capture the grassy areas. All the cameras were there for security reasons. So that was a problem. It's my understanding that they do have cameras that either, I believe they're recently installed. So that'll be in our next report. But as far as this past period that this report is reporting
Okay,
on,
but
that was the problem.
basically technical installation issues, not staff issues.
Correct.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
That's all I
absolutely.
wanted to clarify.
Yes, yes.
Sorry, to the point of the cameras, you got on LPJH, so Los Padrinos, in compliance, and there were a reported total of 622 use of force incidents. But the sample, I'm looking at Barry J, it looks like about 41 or 42% of incidents were sort of like pulled for your review, but 24 out of 622, that's about what, 1%? I'm not sure what that is, 4%? I'm not sure what that number might represent. Why so few, if the sample size is 22 or 622 use of force incidents, at Los Padrinos, why only 20, such a small percentage were reviewed? Just wondering why like so many were reviewed. There were 38 at Barry J, and almost 40-something% of those, incidents were reviewed in the report, but like what 4% or so at Los Padrinos, given the high number of incidents that were reported. Just curious about.
Do you mean reviewed by our office?
It says during the relevant period, the probation
Where are
department
you?
reported.
Let me get on the same page that you're on.
Yeah, so I'm sorry. I should probably to point to you where I'm going. Page 1, just
Okay.
under the use of force review, the part that talks about the cameras, at least 90% of cameras in juvenile facilities must be operational, et cetera, right?
Right.
Then it says that there were 622 use of force incidents during that review.
Correct.
Right?
Right.
In the review of the sample of 24, right? Why so few were reviewed, given that there's such an extraordinary high number of incidents? But at Barry J, there were 38 incidents reported, and then it looks like, I don't know, almost 40% of those cases were reviewed. I'm trying to figure out like the discrepancy between why so many numbers.
I cannot answer that question except for there is a program that's used, an auditing program that spits out the number that you're supposed to use. The person that does that particular part of the report is not here, so I can't specifically say that, but I can find out for you, absolutely.
Yeah, and sorry
I
for
can
being
get that
so
answer.
inarticulate. I was just gonna.
No. And it's me
express why.
just not understanding the numbers because but no, I can find out for you because that I can understand the confusion there.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Commissioner Kakani.
Okay, so you've explained this before, but I'm just going to ask for you to explain it again. So there is a use of force incident in a unit. I think it's called I forget, like an SIR is created, and then PIR is created. That goes to the director?
That goes to a supervisor.
Supervisor, okay. And then who decides to send it to internal affairs? Does it
The director.
automatically go?
The director.
The director.
It's reviewed by the Safe Crisis Management Team, and Ms. Epps can correct me if I'm wrong in any of this. And it's also reviewed by the director, who then decides if there's a possibility of policy violation here, and if so, they send it to IA, and a copy, even if they don't think there's a policy violation, a copy is supposed to go to first.
Okay, so regardless of whether it goes to internal affairs, a copy should be forwarded to first.
Absolutely.
So then, in theory, first is reviewing more than internal affairs is?
Correct.
Okay. And at this point, first is reviewing far less than internal affairs?
Correct.
Okay. I was shocked to see that there was a 445-day delay in one instance in sending whatever this packet is to first. Do you have any sense of like why there was that delay? Did someone just forget to press forward? Did someone or send, or I don't understand.
I don't know the specifics, and it's only because that's the longest delayed. There are many that were delayed 200 days, 100 days, 90 days, so it was not uncommon. So it wasn't as if that was one particular case, and so we really needed to find out. And basically, as you may or may not know, there is a significant issue with reviewing use of force incidents, which is why there was the creation by probation of the backlog team. Where they
I'm
brought
sorry,
in
just the significant delay is related to internal affairs, or it's related to first?
both.
Got it.
A review of the incident at all.
Okay.
So an incident happens, staff writes their reports, and then nothing. Sometimes a director may look at it or not. So there's a significant backlog of cases that just were not reviewed by management. I'll just say management, someone other than the staff that were involved in dealing with the incident.
Okay. And then whose responsibility is it to send it to internal affairs and first?
The directors.
Okay. The director of the facility?
Correct.
And what is the lift? Like, what is the, is it literally just pressed like forward on a packet? Is it like you got to make copies of some? I don't understand like why there is this challenge.
I'll let Ms. Epps handle it because I couldn't tell you the actual punching of the button or
I can't speak to the exact time frame of this report. This is July 2023 to December 2023.
Mhm.
But ideally, what should happen is there's an incident on a unit. The supervisor responds to their unit. They get all of the reports. They debrief with their group to say, hey, what went right, what went wrong. They address it. If there's a concern in what they do, because in real time you should be reviewing the videos, hey, we have a issue, we have a concern here. They talk to the director and the director says, hey, we need to do a referral for whatever reason. There may be, hey, this person never gave an OC warning, or the youth was seated in a chair and OC was dispersed and there was no imminent or actual threat. And then there's the referral done. But you still have to forward it and complete all of the portions of the review that you do, to have all of the documents there and then to send it on to FIRST. So I will say, in looking at the overall process, it isn't that the process isn't workable, but the process itself creates too many delays from, I can say, from the time I got here until even recent months. There's constantly a backlog. Another thing that it does is it separates ownership, like, hey, my people responded to this, and yes, you're talking to the director, but what you're seeing is there's all these delays. That's whether people have not turned in their report. There are some problems also with, I would say, policy. The policy requires that everybody, if I'm on unit X and I'm not even at the unit, I was delivering a kid to the medical module, when I come back and there's been a physical intervention issue, I still have to write a report saying I wasn't on the unit and I didn't witness anything. Well, ideally, you have cameras, you have the active or passive cameras there on the unit, you see who's there. So your waiting times for these reports to be completed, or people didn't move it on, some of the processes, because you have so many different steps involved, delay that. So recently, we did disband the first team because we saw that continuously we are arriving back at a backlog.
Wait, I'm sorry, you said you disbanded the
We
first team?
disbanded the first team because this was associated with significant delays. So we put in place a new process to look at the cases. So how all of the examples, the directors now have closed circuit TV abilities to look at the videos in real time. Prior to that, there was one room at LP where you had to go look at videos, and there were only certain people trained to be able to look at or pull those videos. That's something that delays a effective review process. When you look at the current physical intervention, I call it use of force policy, several pages. That can be something that we've pared down. We have a new policy that's written that I believe came in at 8 pages where you had several before. There's a process that's been put in place to review those. We're starting to get set up to review them and just bringing people along slowly, like, hey, this month, learn to look at the videos in real time to see the incidents so that you can assess them. The second month, which was August, now begin to make sure that you have all of the reports and look at the video at the same time. And now this month, honing in on that process to refine it even further, just to improve it, because it's convoluted and it's not beneficial to timely reviews and timely response.
Sorry, I have, just trying to process all of that. What is the current backlog related to use? I mean, I remember when Ms. Donnell was here, at one point she shared that there was a backlog of, I have it in my notes, something like 700 cases. Then it dropped. So I'm just curious what the current backlog is, if you know.
The backlog that existed before, and I can get the numbers for you. So up to July 9th, we pulled the first team to HQ, to headquarters, saying, hey, everything from July 9th back, because there was a backlog, I want to say, to March. All of this needs to be cleared. They cleared that backlog, and then we ended up with some cases to August, and those were also cleared, only to find that there's several cases that have been outstanding for a while, and I can get you all of these numbers.
Yeah.
And they were older cases that for whatever reasons, they couldn't close in the system. There was a report or two missing, but I can get you all of that data. So the current cases, it's a few hundred, but we can get you those. And most of those have been reviewed. They just need to be closed out a matter of going into the system and checking a box stating that they're closed out because they were reviewed differently. But we can get you the data. I can do it next time. We can bring an update.
Yeah, that would be helpful. I think we had asked for regular updates on the backlog process. So the first team has now regrouped. Are they back in
We
effect?
disbanded. We
Oh,
stopped using
currently disbanded.
first, and what we did is we dispersed our staff. Initially, we were going to use some of our sworn personnel, supervisors and officers, to form a use of force unit. However, due to the staffing issues, we can't fully accommodate that. So when you look at the processes, we developed, and I won't get too far into it because we'll talk about it next month, a form where all of the use of forces are being tracked. We have a contractor working with Director Eric Rayleigh, and they are going through that process so that we can start doing those in real time at a table, and it would be weekly that people come in and there's a review in that process. But we can give out, like I said, I can give you all the details. I wasn't prepared to go through it.
This may be something we want to agendize for the next
Sure.
time and consider an ad hoc. So and
Yeah.
just in the interest in time.
Okay, I just, sorry, just like two more questions. It's hard for me to read this sentence in your report back, Mr. Bates, that however, as noted throughout this report, and frankly, in all of your reports stemming from 2022 to present, and we're approaching 4 years of being in this settlement agreement, right? It was entered into January of 2021. So the fact that we're still tinkering with how to use first and how to review use of force, how to ensure that staff are safe, how to ensure that young people are safe, like it kind of boggles my mind, but just this, however, as noted throughout this report, the department's lack of effective systems to document and track uses of force, room confinements, grievances, and other incidents in the juvenile halls and camps raises concerns about the accuracy of the documentation provided to the Office of the Inspector General. We know that this is an issue with the BSCC around programming, about how written documentation didn't align with what was in the videos. Just generally speaking, like what is the department's response to that? Like you lose all credibility when you have body after body saying that things are not adding up. I mean, I imagine you lose credibility with your staff, you lose credibility with families, you lose credibility with us, you lose credibility with young people. Like this is a $500 million department, I mean, $1 billion department, but just as it relates to juvenile institutions, $500 million. You spent $2 million to get new shirts. Like, I don't understand. Like, what is it that you're doing to address this lack of effectiveness and this lack of effective systems to document any of this so that everyone can feel some semblance of safety? Maybe that's too broad of a question.
That was a question.
Should have started with it.
That was a what? There was a what in there?
Commissioner, was that for me? What are we doing? The question?
I think that was, I think that's for the department. I mean, I imagine Mr. Bates is curious too. Like, what is the department doing in terms of like figuring out these systems to ensure that they're effective, they're transparent, they're reliable? I understand that you're saying for the last 3 months you've disbanded first to modify this policy, train on this, get up to date on that, but like,
It's not just that. It is taking down systems. Some of these systems and processes have been relied upon for a very long time. This is not something that has been really closely looked at. So redoing the policy, hey, this policy doesn't align for how you should be reporting these incidents and reviewing them. So looking at all of the policies and revising the use of force, physical intervention policy, revising the administrative review policy. What's the reason that you're even reviewing use of force? Taking a look at what foundational training has not only been provided to officers, but been provided to supervisors and managers. Does everybody have consistent case law updates? Do you understand what the law says when there's deliberate indifference, when there's a code of silence, when there's failure to report things, and making sure that we're going to be launching all of that, bringing in subject matter experts externally, because a lot of training and things that are going on have been relied upon internally. And I can tell you, in looking at training records, we do need to update people at every level of responsibility on what the law says and the appropriate application of the law in reporting use of force, reviewing use of force, responding to use of force, and taking action to correct behavior. So looking at our overall training plan, reviewing and revising the policies in a way that meets the appropriateness of how to respond and how to report. We recently rolled out a new physical intervention training called Gracie, so that people know consistently, this is how you're able to respond to this force, to have some protections for yourself. Instead of having 1 or 2 or 3, 4 trainers, we have a cadre of 25 people that will retrain staff in these things, looking at how we're deploying OC, looking at the usage of OC and how we're responding to that as well. So those things are being done to address use of force. And like I said, I wasn't prepared to get deeply into it today, but we are more than happy to come back next month and do a presentation. These are all the areas that we are addressing because we are taking steps. The chief's aware of it, I'm aware of it, OIG is aware of it, and we've been working on those things. We don't want staff injured, we don't want kids injured, and regardless of what the station is, whether I'm detained or reporting to work, you want a safe and consistent place to work. And you want people to be confident when they're deploying their skills to stop attacks. You want people to be confident when they're reporting incidents, and you want to be confident as a department and in the public that you're reporting these appropriately and the appropriate actions have been taken for what you're reporting.
Thank you. Commissioner Meredith?
This predates you, Chief, just so you know, on this use of force backlog. I went tilt 18 months, 2 years ago over this because there was 1,000, and some of those were way past a year. Sorry. They went way past the year doctrine and all that. And I couldn't understand it because obviously I cover the world of law enforcement, and use of force, I understand intimately well and on all levels. And when a use of force report is made, I don't understand how there could be missing reports. And this is not on you, I'm just saying for the past, because it's an accountability issue. My other question would be, on these documents where the director or supervisor should be looking at the camera, is there a form that says camera present, check yes? You know, reviewed, yes, preserved, yes. Is that on the form?
There is a revised CCT reporting form to coincide with the access being placed on all of the directors' desktops. So there are a series of things that they have to acknowledge in the video reviews, and I can get that to the POC, or if you want me to go ahead and provide those when we come back to do the presentation.
You can do
whichever
it
you-
during the presentation. What I'm looking at is that my agency, we had custody and we had obviously the field and detect. Everybody had use of force. Standard policy, but before I went home, I had to make sure that that force memo was in. That's why I'm, and just like I say, predates you, baffled that that couldn't be done. That's it.
Vice
And
Chair
if I
Canales?
could add to that, Commissioner Meredith, and that goes to our area of, are the video recordings properly used, the cameras being properly used? Because we look for that form to see, did someone review this video for an alleged use of out of policy incident? And those are, if you look in our report, those are the cases that we list. And those are cases that, in the OIG's opinion, it was not properly reviewed, because when everyone looks at it, clearly there was a violation, but it didn't get noted by the reviewing person. So it
Well,
goes to
what
that.
I look at is the timeliness of it because, you know, if there's a disciplinary issue, it's got to be done in a certain time period. But more importantly, is there a pattern of practice that maybe we have a flawed policy or a flawed technique that we need to look at? That's why timeliness is really important.
Commissioner Canales was next.
Thank you very much for, I think all the questions, I think, you know, are very, very relevant. And then the answers, though, as I'm listening to the answers, and it sounds really good in the report, but I'm wondering if you're measuring success throughout the department, or is it just at an administrative level?
Well, I'm not really sure of the question, because we're
Well, the the way the implementation of the program and removing old standards and bringing in new ones and reviewing the videos and everything like that, is there like mutual communication throughout the entire department and things like that?
We're reviewing the areas, not particular levels of staff. So if the area we're reviewing deals with line staff, then that's what we're reviewing. If we're reviewing areas that deal with executive staff or
Right.
supervising staff.
And I think the question was more exactly for Chief Deputy
Oh, I'm
Epps
sorry.
because of the answers that she was giving to Commissioner Kakani and also to Dawn. And so I was listening to the answers of the implementation of the process and, kind of, and it even sounded like maybe there was, since everything was done internally, there was some issues there and now, having an external process and everything like that. And so I'm just wondering, across the board, how is it working out throughout the entire department? Because right now it seems like you were speaking from an administrative level. So that's why I'm asking, how is it working out throughout the entire process?
So thank you for the question. So we have revised all of the policies. As you may know, our comprehensive inspection starts on Sunday. So we have all of those, and as not to do too many things at the same time, those will be held until we're done with that process. We see where we're at and then move forward. But we did meet with all of the first team and everybody, all the parties that were involved in the use of force review. We went through the policies saying these will be the changes. This is what we're wanting to do with the use of force unit. But then, as I said, we had to change a couple of things up just because of our staffing levels, even having a shortage of supervisors, so some of that changed. We have been meeting on the processes, and when we're done with what we're doing with our BSCC inspection, we'll begin that. So what has already been begun is the Gracie training, and I want to say it's either 25 or 27 the trainers have completed their training. So training will be rolled out for all staff to be able to take that. For the use of force are what they call key performance indicators. Will we see a decrease in use of force? When we survey or talk to staff, do you feel more comfortable with your skills? Do you know what you're able to do in the continuum? If there's OC, if someone's putting their hands on you and you have a different response to using the techniques of Gracie, do you feel comfortable doing that? Do you feel comfortable with how you're supposed to write your report, using the necessary language? Like there's a difference between passive resistance and active resistance and being able to articulate those things in your reports. So we do have some key performance indicators that once we roll all of the training out and all of the new processes, that we will hit on benchmarks. Primarily, are we seeing a decrease in that use of force? Are people using the tools and the options available to them, up to and including uses of our crisis response team for kids that are just agitated but not harmfully aggressive? Are you responding? Are you going to your Gracie, which is a physical intervention? That is holds, that is taking someone to the floor. I often talk to staff who say they don't feel comfortable doing that because they don't want to get in trouble and they're not sure that they'll be supported. We need to change that through our messaging and our training, which is why we train so many trainers. And are you doing the reports right? So we can go over those performance indicators, but to clearly answer your question, we have all of our processes ready to go. As soon as we're done with our BSCC inspection, we're going to get to the training piece. I talk to supervisors, directors, different people. Hey, these are all the things that we're looking to do. So,
And I think that was my question in layman's term, like everything that you're saying, when are we going to see, that it is really being implemented, that it's working and that it's cohesive throughout the department? So thank you.
At this point, we're going to take a break and give the public a chance to chime in, and then we will return to questions and concerns by our team.
Okay, Thank you all for coming today. Some of your faces are new, and I'm very happy to see you in the room. And I want you to know that we take public comment really seriously here. So we encourage you to give public comment. Thank you for spending your morning with us. Also, feel free to, during your public comment, tell your own story, use I statements, and share whatever you like to share, including questions. Often, if you haven't watched our meetings, the commissioners will then reflect your questions back to the panelists. So I really encourage you to share your thoughts. You're welcome to stand up and get in line, but you also don't have to stand the whole time. We're not going to cut off the public comment, but you will only be able to give comment one time. Anything else you want me to share, Commissioner Mundo, before we start? 2 minutes. Feel free to take the whole 2 minutes or less. Okay, but everybody's still in the room. So yeah, we're good. The commissioners are still in the room listening to you. They just are refilling their coffee, but you're welcome to begin.
Thank you so much. My name is Norm Johnson. I am the Executive Director of Probation Supervisors. As Mundo knows, I have done 40 years in the department, and I think, Commissioners, your questions are right on. But my concern not only is that we don't have a contract, but all of these process and procedures that now gone into place. Miles, Mills, and Brown says that you should meet with the union on these things. You're not meeting with the union. You're not respecting us. And my comment is, please meet with us on these new policies. Meet with us on these procedures. Let us know what you're doing so we can work collaboratively with you. We're not the enemy. We want to work with you, and we want to put this together, and we want the department to be successful. But there's some things that the department have to do to move forward. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Johnson.
Good morning. Sorry, I may read a little bit because I took some notes. Sorry about that. But I am glad to know, Chief Epps, Deputy Chief Epps, that we are going to learn about this new use of force policy, because I've been hearing there's a new plan since July 9th and we haven't heard anything. So like Norm was saying, it would be nice to meet with the union. Also, what would help with these policies is actually having management that can interpret the policies and can take that down the chain of command, right? Having someone in charge of LP but don't know our policies, that's a big problem. Knowing what we can and cannot do is a big problem. There's been a division that's been created, SB County versus LA County, right? Let's keep it 100. This has been intentionally created. But Epps, I'm here to let you know, I'm willing to assist you in undoing that. Also, with our contract, come to the table, come talk to us. Let us get this contract signed. Thank you.
Thank you.
By the way, that first team should have never been disbanded. They were disbanded July 9th in a very unprofessional manner. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm one of the supervisors in one of the camp. My name is Angelica Rodillo. I am an SCM reviewer. It was concerning to know that the first team was dismantled because they're pretty much my lifeline. That's who I contact whenever there is questions, when it comes to the forms. A lot of our forms are not updated to the new policy. So it's very hard to write a review when you are no longer considering some things use of force or restraints, but the staff are forced to have to modify how they explain their restraint. Because some titles are no longer implemented, correct. So that's a lot of liability when it comes to also the videos. Not all of us had access until not too long ago to see the videos. And that is a liability to me, because for the main part, I'm the first one who sees the videos because I need to make sure that the reports match the video footage. But we did not have access until not too long ago. So that's a lot of liability. I am the one that notifies the director if there's something that I think is out of compliance. That's a lot of liability for somebody who still doesn't have a contract. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm a proponent of the video, and Meredith, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't understand why we're using the video that we do. Other law enforcement agencies, and I'm going to use my own personal experience. My son, for instance, who is a police officer, when he has a use of force, he has the ability to see his body-worn camera, see his camera from the car and everything, so that he understands what he's writing, because in memory, each one of us has 20-something years, 30 years plus experience. And we can all tell you, in that moment, we thought we did this, and it didn't turn out that way. So now you're setting up all of our DSOs and DPOs for investigation, because you're having them write reports without knowing what's on that video. And then it looks like they're falsifying a document. And that's not fair, because in that heat of the moment, you don't know what you did. You thought you did this, and you thought you did that. So there's no reason why. The video's not going to lie. We don't have the editing. So there's no reason why they shouldn't have access to that film, so that they can see that. If they did something wrong, yeah, we'll take our hit for it. We'll take the retraining, we'll take whatever it is. But there's no reason why this is a secret, and to us, it's used as punitive. And that's not fair. Again, supervisors have a lot of liability. We need our contract so that we can help you fix this department.
Thanks, Ms. Davila.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Sandra Moss. I'm the supervisor at the Harbor Area Office. I have 31 years of experience in this department, and I feel very disrespected at this particular time. I have staff who have been mandated to go to the halls who've never worked in the halls, and then the training that they're given is inadequate. And also, when our deputies are being assaulted, there is no programs or structured follow-up to check on those staff. Those staff are still made to go into the halls. There is no need, we need to develop a wellness unit that promptly checks on these staff. There's no one that calls our staff to check on them to see, hey, you've given this department 25 years, how you doing? Are you okay? No one does that. We need a proactive approach to officers' wellness and the essential morale and retention. The morale in this unit is the worst I've ever seen since I've been here in 31 years. We, like it's been said, we want to work together. We are one. We have the same goal together. We want to take care of these kids, but kids can't be taken care of if staff isn't taken care of. If you don't provide us with the necessary tools that we need to provide what kids need, we can't do that. We want a contract. It's been 3 years since we had a contract. We need a contract. We need you guys to come to the table and talk real-time stuff, not someone said up in the air. Today, what is going on today in our institutions? What's going on with our individual families? We need you guys to understand we're humans too, and we care about these kids. I hear people say that we're animals and we don't care about kids. We do this because we care about kids. We need you to care about us. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Moss.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Angela Wheaton. I'm also a supervisor with the Firestone area office. And there's so much to be said here today. Unfortunately, 2 minutes is not going to cut it, so I'm going to do my best to stay focused. I'd like to backtrack a little bit and say that I feel like we're putting the cart before the horse. We can have 100 committees. We can have, we can constantly meet and get together to discuss ways to improve circumstances. We can try to implement programs and do different things to benefit the staff, to benefit the kids. None of that is going to matter if we don't have the staffing there to fulfill all of these tasks. No one is answering or asking the question why the staff aren't present. I've worked for this department for 18 years, and this is the first time in my entire career that we have ever seen this kind of circumstance. And I think we have to remember that we're a human services department, and there is no human component. That component is missing. We have to actually care about the people that are supposed to fulfill these roles. Like Ms. Moss, my unit is also depleted. I have no deputies. This is the second time that all of my unit has been stripped and sent to the juvenile hall. And I've been very fortunate in my career to have people that are extremely dedicated and who have been deploying regularly, have been full duty staff for the last 5 years since COVID started. And now they're exhausted, like so many other people from the department. And I think we need to start exploring ways to get the staff back on board. Rather than being punitive, let's look at creative ways. I'm all about solutions. well, many of us have talked about, changing the schedules around, utilizing compressed 40s so that you can increase the staffing consistency in the juvenile halls and give people opportunities to still maintain relationships with their families. It's not that people aren't willing to come to work. They need to be able to have balance, a work-life balance as well. Sorry, I heard the bell.
No, you're fine. Thank you. Thank you.
Isabella Solomon again with the Anti-Recidivism Coalition. I'm here to speak on behalf of the youth who aren't able to speak for themselves and to offer solutions. I ask the present probation officers to please welcome the use of the resource that is credible messengers to help them heal and do better. Credible messengers when in these facilities are there to support not only facility staff, but also youth during their healing journey and their growth. They are there to help them learn, improve, and reach new heights. This can help them not only de-escalate, but possibly prevent these write-ups or use of force in its entirety, but also help them when they are released so they don't go back. These issues are not insurmountable. They can be resolved with bold leadership and a willingness to collaborate with the credible messengers and other organizations that only want to help the youth. We all share the same goal, to see these young people thrive. This is not about assigning blame or calling anyone out. We want to work together, credible messengers, probation officers, and all other stakeholders, because we are all working towards the same mission, ensuring the youth in our care succeed, grow, and stay safe, to have successful facilities, and to successfully fix these ongoing issues. I think joining in collaboration instead of viewing each other as threats could make us all successful. Right now, our priority must be the safety and well-being of all parties involved. By working together, we can create an environment where they are supported and have the opportunity to truly improve, both staff and youth. Thank you.
Thanks, Isabella.
Good morning, each and everyone. My name is Douglas. I'm here with Anti-Recidivism Coalition. I've been home for like about a year and a half now. I've been working with ARC policy team for a year now. And then ever since I got out, my mindset was like changed like the team for our youth, Like give it to them because I've been there before. I was a very judge during the whole 4 years. And then all this going on about the all groups and everything, the programs they come and they say they wanna bring, like nothing's happening. They always say like, oh, we're gonna bring this and that. And then we over there like all happy and like because they tell us, oh, we're gonna bring this and that, but then out of nowhere they be like, oh, we don't have enough staff. Because the staffing thing be going on for years, not months, for years. I was there, so I've been in their shoes. I know how to feel, to know how to program, to know be able to go outside recreation. Because over there in the union, it's a board right there that is all the program that we're supposed to do. But sometimes we don't do that because we don't have staff. So or sometimes we don't do that because like incident happens and they for one people they blame everybody, and that's not fair because it's people right there that really want to change, they really want their program. Like people like me, like I want to give back to them, I want to help the community, I want to help our youth, I'm here like speaking for them, because they're not here, they're not able to speak for themselves. And then we just want actions, That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Bell.
Good morning. Thomas Bell, Camp VP, Local 685, in support of my brother and sisters in 721. I just also want to, just mention what things that was said earlier as well. One, with the support of the officers that get hurt during these restraints. We really need to start showing our support. The management teams need to really show that they care that these officers are out hurt, that they're not just at home sitting by themselves, and no one cares. Because they come back to work and the same kid is in the same unit doing the same things he did when they hurt him. So management really needs to show that they care about these officers, as well as reviewing the video. I think I mentioned that before. Nobody here could go put on some gloves, go outside, have a boxing match, and then come back and write everything that they did. If you guys were given that thing, you would say it's unfair. That's exactly what's happening with us. We go outside, we get in a restraint, and now we got to write everything we did after the restraint, after we've already been physically abused, we're tired, or maybe we're just tired or don't remember what happened. We can't review the cameras. That doesn't seem right. It doesn't seem fair. And then we are accountable for what we write. After you guys get to sit back and review it and watch it, we have to accountable what we write when we was in this stressful situation. That's a difficult thing. I think you guys really need to understand that how difficult that is. If you want your reports done right, you want them done fair, you want them done correct, let people review the camera. Let them see their actions. Like she said, they can't change it. You can't change the camera, but you could write down. You could be like, okay, that's what I did. Oh, I thought I did this, but that's what I did. And you could write it down and you can explain yourself. But once again, supporting 721, they need their contract.
Thanks, Mr. Bell.
Good morning. My name is Sylvia Khan. I work out of Centinela Area Office and I oversee juvenile investigations, about 60 cases with one DPO who is here with me right now. And I do juvenile supervision and I have 2 DPOs that have been at the halls for the last 3 months or so. Beyond that, I have to oversee over 120 cases by myself as a supervisor in the field. I believe everybody cares about what's going on in the halls, but who cares about the field and the kids and their parents that are complaining every single day that they have 3, 4 different probation officers because where's their probation officer? They want to go get Ms. Ward, Ms. Huerta, Ms. Osorio, Ms. Frazier out of the hall so they could come and help their kids out who are out of control, who are picked up on 3 cases, petition A, B, C, and D. You guys aren't even seeing that. We are not servicing, we're deservicing our community. I am one person. This is my community. I live and I serve this community. I'm 2 miles away from home. I'm 2.1 miles away from work. All we need is for you guys to look at the field and what we're doing. We are pulling all this staff to go to the halls. But what is the halls doing for us? What is the hall? When are we going to resolve the issue with the people not showing up or people leaving, going to OC San Bernardino, Riverside, because they can't deal with people at the halls or the situation going on at the halls? I need my staff back to my unit so we could service our community. How about these art people, recidivism, that want to sit here and talk about the halls closing them down? How about they go to the schools, the elementaries, the junior highs, the high schools, and start seeing the kids there? That's where the kids need your help. They don't need your help at the halls. They need your help before they make it to the halls. How about the YDD, the DYD programs? They need to come over here and see the kids in the field. They need to come and talk to us in the field how they could best service our communities, and we will be there to support them. I will be there to support them because this is my community. All we need, I'm doing the job of too many DPO2s.
That's your time. I'm sorry to cut you off.
Support our contract.
Good morning once again. It's Eric Walton. As it relates to the video review, things of that nature, far too often, as someone who had to represent officers in investigation cases, far too often we have situations where you have cases where the case has been expanded because of the political winds. Now they want to be able to go after the officer or the supervisor for a case that catches political attention and it's done wrong. The investigation is done wrong. So that creates a concern. You can look certain things at the video, and even though the video may show certain things, then basically now you're going after somebody because it's a political move and it's wrong. And you have officers lose their jobs, or it goes to a little bit further. Then that's another problem, because it's something that could have been addressed at the institution, or it could have been addressed, or you become real punitive. I've seen this happen way too many times. So regardless of sometimes of you got people who are reviewing the view that really don't know policy. And that's a major concern. Or you have an empty suit sitting at the Skelly hearing that basically all they want to do is promote and just send the case on to civil service. That's wrong, because now you're doing the officer wrong. And it doesn't matter if you sit up here and put a senior director there to overhear the matter. If they don't know policy and they've never been inside of a living unit, they're useless. So in that regard, that needs to be changed in regards to policy review and things of that nature. The other thing is very concerning. ARC, I know you got good heart. You guys are doing great things, but far too often we've seen many times ARC comes in, credible messengers come in, pass out a sign-in sheet to the kids. Oh, sign this, and they go stand off into the corner or go turn in a sign-in sheet to collect money.
That's your time, Mr. Walton. We're glad to have you back at the meeting.
Hi, everyone. My name is Annette Smith, and I'm a supervisor, and I'm one of the ones that go to juvenile hall almost every weekend to assist. And one thing that we have not touched on, and I'm going to make it very clear. I walked in juvenile hall 2 weeks ago. I was greeted by staff saying to me in Unit R, 5 kids assaulted staff. The staff was almost thrown over the second floor in Unit S. I walked around, I talked to 3 directors, and I asked them what were they going to do. They said, we have to talk to management. We have to talk to such and such. As of this day, those 5 grown men are still sitting up there in Unit R. Those same 5 grown men, and I know for a fact, are sitting up there at the tables, cutting drugs up, passing them out to the kids in the bathroom. What are you doing about it? I know you see it on the cameras. What are you doing about it? See, you want to get us and put us down and say, we're not doing this, we're not doing this. You worried about those numbers that you're taking up, all these percentages and all this kind of stuff. What are you going to do with those kids who are assaulting us as staff? That's why staff is not coming to work, because they do not have the support. And we need it, Ms. Epps. We need it. We need it. Please support the SDPOs and give us our contract.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. My name is Andrew Mandujano with the Anti-Recidivism Coalition. And kind of just want to touch base on all of this. Formerly incarcerated, I was at Barry J in 2015, where I was fighting a case. And this has all been happening since then. And even before that, where probation is understaffed, where we have outside unit or recreation at a certain time, and now we can't go because there was a fight on the outside unit, and now probation has to report to that. So now we're forced to stay in the unit, which kind of gets a lot of the youth or young adults frustrated, which can cause a fight, which can cause people to act a certain way with emotion towards staff and take it out on staff, which is kind of unfair for them because it's not their fault. We talk about, I'm not here to point fingers at who could do what job better or what, but as a credible messenger, I've seen the impact it has on these youth to come with the direct lived experience and share that experience with them and show them on how I've overcame those obstacles and barriers, on how I maintained my emotions and not took it out on probation. I mentioned to various policy meetings that some of the probation that I was with were the closest thing I ever had to a mom, the closest thing I ever had to a dad. So trying to just coexist in this space with everyone and seeing how we could all work together, seeing on how we could all take action. You hear it from your probation on how they're understaffed. You hear it on how the youth want more programming, and they benefit off of all these programs. But we can't implement any of these programs if we can't come to an agreement with all probation and making sure they're safe, our youth is safe, and everyone is happy. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for being here. Welcome. And Mr. Miller.
Good morning, everybody. I got some notes, so I want to make sure I hit some points, and I'll make sure I'm within the 2 minutes. My name is Curtis Miller, First Vice President of SEIU Bargaining Unit 702. The common theme here is officer safety, officer safety, officer safety. I've listened to years of these POC meetings, and people are pretty flippant about the fact of our officers not showing up to work. They call out, they don't care. Has nothing to do with that. It's officer safety. If the officers don't feel safe, they're not coming to work. Until you take care of the safety issue, you will not fix the staffing issue. Our members, our SDSOs, work skeleton crews in their units. Some of them were on boards. Throughout COVID, they were frontline soldiers. They were there every day, putting their lives on the line. They get assaulted. They get attacked. They can't keep their units in control because they work with skeleton crews. Every day they have somebody different coming into their unit. No consistency. Again, you cannot have the kids be safe if the officers aren't safe, if the environment isn't safe. Our SDPOs have full units, 12 deputies that are completely decimated. Maybe you have 2 officers in a field office, like Ms. Khan said. Think about what's happening in the community. Probationers that are being unsupervised. What is that doing for public safety? Last point, our contract. In spite of all of this, we still show up to work every day. We do our jobs. We put ourselves on the line. Our SDPOs are writing reports. They're serving as ODs. We're going above and beyond. We have SDPOs that go volunteer in the halls. We have SDSOs that are doing the work in the units. We're still doing all that for 3 years without a contract. At some point, the county's got to come and negotiate in good faith. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Miller.
Thank you once again.
We can only do one comment per item. Thank you. I appreciate you being here.
No problem.
Okay, so we're gonna go, if we don't have anybody else in line who would like to comment in public, we're gonna go to our virtual commenters, which I think we have 2 people with their hands up. We're gonna start with Jordan. Jordan, you may need to unmute yourself. Jordan, can you hear me? Jordan, you're unmuted. Okay, we're going to go, Jordan, we'll come back to you. We're going to go to Tanya Ibanez. Tanya, you can unmute yourself.
Yes. Good morning. This is Tanya Ibanez, and I don't think this is the right forum to be complaining about the lack of a contract. That's something really that the labor folks need to get together and negotiate. But I just wanted to give my personal opinion on this whole issue of officer safety. It works both ways. If you don't show up to work, you're putting your coworkers in danger. So you can't say that that you have this ability to take leave whenever you want because you feel endangered and not also think about your coworkers who are being endangered because you didn't show up. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Tanya. Let's go back to Jordan.
Hello.
Oh, great. You can begin, Jordan.
Okay, thank you so much. Hi, this is Jordan. I am with LA Youth Uprising. And I wanted to start off just by applauding all of the young people who shared today. These are young people whose experiences and records will follow them for the rest of their lives. To say that they're putting themselves out there for some cash is just insulting. These are their lives, and the time that they spent inside these facilities are not uniforms that they can take on and off. And so I really urge the POC to keep this in perspective and remember that we're up against a $500 million department steeped in decades of problematic protocols and broken systems that we hear from the staff themselves today. It's time to fully commit to an alternative vision, uplifting again the credible messengers and the work that they do here, and urging for cooperation by probation to commit to this new approach to youth accountability and development. Thank you.
Thank you, Jordan. And we're going to go to Frank Paredes. Also, before you start, Frank, Helen, we saw that you put your hand down. If you still want to speak, if you can put your hand back up, we'll call on you. Frank, you can unmute yourself and I'll start your timer. Frank, are you there?
I am here. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, you can begin.
To my brothers and sisters in 721, yes, it's time for you to close this contract out. In terms of all the brothers and sisters 685 and of labor, we've been tirelessly trying to communicate across the board, across all stakeholders. And honestly, we're simply deeply disappointed from last week when our chief wasn't present. We believe in the work that Kimberly Epps is doing and OIG and the Oversight Commission, working with legislators all across the board, but with no meaningful communication, all this information not funneling into the plan. We don't have access to a global plan, so we don't know the results and outcomes that we have to design and support. We love our youth to the max effect of their life and their future and their success. And we have beautiful people that work for the County of Los Angeles Probation Department who are succumbed by the change, suffering from the change, and are not allowed to communicate courageously through this change so we can remain committed to the mission that we live for, years and years of service that we want to give and offer with no hope, morale, no access to global plan. How do we build with these future problems and issues? How do we gain the consideration and respect? How do we incorporate all of the things and all the questions that clear all of these so we can all strive and meet with unity all the things we need to do for these people, for their families, for the community, for the department, for California probation and all. But right now, there's zero communication, zero plan, and we're not included. And how else are we going to move forward if we're not invited to this piece? Thank you. Close that contract.
Thank you. Ismail, okay, that's the end of public comment. Thank you all very much for your comments.
Thank you. Keeping in mind the time, do we have any questions or concerns related to this agenda anymore? Commissioner Terry?
Is there going to be a response? I mean, I think there are some things that should be addressed. Is there an update on, I know nothing about the contracting process, so I think it would be helpful to kind of know where that's at. I'm sorry.
I have the same.
Yeah. Even for the public to understand. And I think also what are the channels of communication, the issue with the videos, where do people communicate that to? How does that get communicated? And then what are the wellness protocols after staff are assaulted? Because I think we've gotten a lot of public comments about it and I think we should address it.
I won't address negotiations because I'm not a part of you guys' negotiation team. I have met with 721, 702, 685 on many issues. In fact, before the directors were given the CCCTV, there were some changes to the policies or the temporary departmental order that was provided to the appropriate union. They reviewed it, gave their feedback before that was put in place. In my meetings with the unions, Chief Deputy Williams and I, and the meetings that the chief has been included in, early on, we began to talk about the need to change the use of force policies, which we call here physical intervention policies. That was discussed in a meeting with 685. Information regarding Gracie and the upcoming training for Gracie was specifically provided, and questions were taken about Gracie and all of those things. Information regarding the changes in the annual departmental training plan were discussed with all unions, 702, 685, and 721. And when the plan was finalized, there were more questions taken. So I'm not sure if there's something specific that people feel like, hey, that should have been communicated to the union. I didn't bring my notes with me, but I can go back through all of my notes and tell you exactly what has been addressed with the unions and what discussions were had on those things and what input they had. When we talk about the video reviews should have always been part of the briefing, the debriefing process whenever there's a use of force. It's industry standards across law enforcement agencies in the debrief to show the videos. There's some arguments for why people do not show the videos, but it should be standard. We became aware that that was not happening. That had not been a process here in Los Angeles County. So part of what we did is to begin, hey, first, directors need to have the videos. We need to not be able to have this process where people are pulling videos days after the fact. People need to be able to look at these videos in real time. That's the reason why we've been systematically rolling out, as I said, the changes that are going to be coming with use of force so that people are comfortable with what they're doing and have an explanation for why they're doing it. The wellness protocol, now, I have asked, I have called last week. There was an assault. The gentleman shared it. I will not get into confidential details. As soon as I got the video from Director Pignon, I immediately called the facility. I wanted to know about the staff. I don't know how many people will say it, but I'm up at all hours. Every time my phone chings, I look at it, and if there's been an assault on staff, I'm immediately in touch with the facility. I'm immediately asking about the staff. I talked to several supervisors and directors. What is the protocol to refer people to peer support when someone is injured? I've called back and asked about individual status. How did this person get to the hospital? Did they get their industrial accident, the IA packet? What is this person's status? I've sent several emails. Hey, what is this person's number? Are they even open to a call? So that is something that routinely happens. The other thing is when people are injured, there's been a lot of questions. Well, hey, no one files charges. I want to say that is not fully accurate. So under the code, and I think I'm remembering it right, it's Welfare and Institution Code 875A1. And specifically in the code, I don't remember verbatim, but in the code, it lays out that a youth can be committed to a DJJ program, our secure youth treatment programs. It comes from 823, but this law has existed prior to SB 823, which gave us our local secure youth treatment programs. And in the law, it says the following conditions must be met. Well, as you're reading through those, one of the conditions is the minors at age 14 years or older can be committed to SYTF. The law is very clear that says that the court's consideration has to be based on the last adjudicated offense. So if there's a kid in custody for a triple homicide and he has charges for a 187, I'm not dismissive of any injury at all. So if there's an assault on a staff, whether that is, I've seen many things, kicking people, throwing milk cartons, and outright attacks on staff. So if I file a charge, if I say, hey, I need you guys to file this 245A1, this assault, and that now becomes the last adjudicated offense, you lose the integrity on the 187. So we do not deal with juveniles now on this 14 or older, on this 187, because we filed a lesser offense. There is no provision, and if I'm wrong, anybody correct me, there's many lawyers here. If I'm wrong, there is no provision under the law to file the subsequent offense because you negate the controlling offense. That's all that's about. That it's not about, we don't want to file the charge. So now let me talk about the discipline actions that have been taken. When you look at Title 15 and you look at the policies, there's the separation policy, there's the room confinement policy, and different counties call it different things. So you can do an individualized treatment plan that says these are the steps that you have to follow. When I talked last week, when this happened on Tuesday, I immediately said, hey, Pignon, hit me up. How old is this kid? How old are all the kids that I'm seeing in this video? All 187s. All, if we had filed an assault charge, we would lose the integrity on that, understanding that. What is the disciplinary action? I talked to Ms. Harabid, hey, I need you to pull the policies because I'm looking at a sample policy and under, I think it's like 1313, but I probably have that wrong. 1313 of the Title 15 code, it gives you the 4 hours of that restricted program. And you have to write a justification. It did not rise to the level of a temporary restriction of temporary suspension of rights. It wasn't a major facility disruption. So we immediately used the situation that we had at our disposal. In the interim, because I've been looking at many of the policies here and have changed, worked immediately with policy to change, hey, this doesn't look right. I think we left out this provision. Send out an email to CAPIA, the California Association of Probation Institution Administrators. Ask all of the counties for a copy of their policy. This policy is lacking here. I think that the code that I'm remembering, this is not addressed. This is not addressed under Title 15. We have changed numerous policies to address those lapses. But when you look at the separation policy, we got San Diego's policy. They're all a matter of public record. Policy, San Bernardino, Riverside, Alameda County, Ventura, even ask for Imperials. Our policy and is consistent with the policy of the other counties, and we use the recourse available to us under Title 15. We are in no way taking a step back. I also, in the last 3 weeks, met with our consultant, Mr. Holmes, who is working on, I don't know how familiar, this county started a policy some time ago under Welfare and Institution Code 208.5. The department never finished the policy. Under that policy, under that Welfare and Institution Code, if a youth is 19 years old or more and they have an ongoing history of violence, they present an ongoing safety or security risk to the facility or to other youth, if they're not amenable or to treatment and programming, what makes you not amenable? If you're failing to go to school, if you're failing to participate in programming, coinciding with these behaviors. We met with Supervisor Orozco, who will be working with Mr. Holmes, to say, hey, there needs to be a mechanism of how these things are processed. Every time there's an incident, what is the documentation that the facility has kept? Tell me, what have we kept over the last 4, 5 years, even going back to Central? It can't be that someone got out and then they come back and you hit them with all this old documentation. But what has been your process in the facility? Because when you're 19 or older, we can petition the court to do a temporary removal of this youth to detain them at county jail, particularly if they are habitually violent. So working on that process has been happening. Check it out. I mean, there's no reason for me to lie. In addition to that, I would say this, as supervisors, I have said this publicly before. I have said this in meetings at LP. I have said this when I've gone to other places and talked about supervisors. Supervisors are the most critical place of communication in an organization. They talk specifically to the boots on the ground. They relay the message that the department has and what is our standard. It's not only through our supervisors, but it's also how we train staff. You identify your departmental expectations through how you train your staff. You check because you review that and how those things are applied to their day-to-day duties. And I will say here again, because I've said it at the facility, it is the responsibility, not only mine, not only the chiefs, but our supervisors to hinge on the policy to say, hey, I can do a separation on this. I can do a temporary administrative segregation on this because it's in the policy. I will say that when people say, well, you have to know the policies, all policies, no matter what the county is, are based on Title 15 when it comes to detention. You have to know Title 15. I've been in this game 34 years and I've only been here since December. And I say to people often, hey, in my mind, that's called something else. Tell me what you call it here, and I'll give a quick breakdown. So that's what I'll say about how we're handling those particular issues in the facility. The last thing that I will say on this, unless there's when I get other questions, I'll respond. Thank you for acknowledging the work that I do, but it's not supporting the plan of Kim Epps. I am not the chief probation officer. I work at the discretion of the chief probation officer. There is not a day at a minimum that the chief, and I'm saying minimum, and it's been a minimum. I haven't had a minimum conversation with him in a long time. And I would say a minimum for us is 3 times a day that we are in conversation. This man is on my phone. He's hit me up in a text. I think his earliest text today was 3:58 a.m. Hey, I need you to take a look at this. Hey, did you follow up on this? Hey, chief, this is what you sent me. I'm sending this back. This man is constantly in communication with me. There is nothing that I go out and beat the drum that is my own. There is nothing that Chief Deputy Williams goes out and beats the drum that is her own. We talk at the behest of the chief. There is not an idea, there is not a presentation that goes forward that he is not intimately aware of. These are his things. I speak on his behalf. When he is not available because he is in meetings, when he is not available because he's dealing with the big ticket items, that is why he gave me operations, and I hope he trusts me to do that, to carry that message forward, and to carry those actions forward. So I do not want anybody, anywhere, the Probation Oversight Commission, any community program, any union, any individual employee to get it twisted. I speak for the chief and I work on behalf of the chief. The ideas, he's like the car, hey, this is where I need to go. We plan the trip based on the things that he told us that he wants to see, and we're the gas in the car that makes it go. But this is always very much his vision and what he's given us to work with.
Thank you. So we are running very behind. We're going to take a 5-minute break and then come back, and we're going to table Agenda 6 because of our colleague not being here. And then we'll move to Agenda 7, which is an agenda item that requires a vote. Hopefully you'll stay. We really appreciate you coming today and sharing your voice, members of 721 and my long ago colleagues. We'll be back at 12:10.
Just explain to Sam what we're doing.
Hello.
Expect that.
Yeah, I'm sorry, guys.
Now, oops, sorry, it is now 12:10. Mr. Meredith?
It's not even listening to you. And I don't think you're gonna exercise right.
Okay, let's, commissioners, let's find our seats. She's the one that has to go. isn't she?
You know, okay, yeah, yeah.
Okay, so resuming our meeting, we are okay. So unless there is any objection, because our colleague Shay Jackson is not here today, and she was the spirit behind agenda item 6. Unless there isn't any objections, I am going to go ahead and table it. We are going to move on to agenda item 7. And we do it after. That's right, yes. So for item 7, I will report on the activity of the Commissioner Recruitment Ad Hoc Committee and present the recommended finalists for consideration by the full PLC. After I talk briefly about the process and the finalists, we will vote to recommend to the Board of Supervisors to fill the vacant at-large commission position on the PLC and to disband the ad hoc committee, subcommittee. The process began with Commissioner Garcia Lays resigned, with staff quickly getting the word out through our emails and social media and encouraging the supervisors' offices to send out the applications to their constituents. We received 13 applications, all of which were determined to meet the legal or conflict standards by staff and county council. While the applicants vary in terms of their backgrounds and level of expertise, I was very, very pleased to see the high level of qualified people who applied. I think that speaks highly about the work of the commission, and I'm very grateful to all of them who applied. Of those 13 applications, the subcommittee chose 4 to interview who had expertise and qualifications that were outstanding. One of those 4 candidates dropped out of the process while learning more about the time commitment, but the 3 interviews went very well. All 3 members of the subcommittee led the participated in each of the interviews. Staff and justice deputies were also present in the interviews, but only to observe the candidates. The ad hoc committee agreed that 2 applicants demonstrated outstanding qualifications and should be considered by the full POC. The committee chose not to rank the candidates, but to present them in order here to make the decision. The justice deputies present at the interviews did not have any concerns about the 2 finalists and shared their appreciation for the quality of the candidates who applied, and in particular, the 2 finalists. The 2 finalists for consideration are Brooke Harris and Dr. Armida Ornelas. Their resumes have been shared publicly on the agenda with the commissioners. So both interviewed and both brought different skills that would have filled some of the holes that we have. They also shared in their discussions a passion for the work, and they met the this body needs to have certain elements in it to actually meet the criteria that the PRIT set out. So they met that. And it was difficult. And we wish we could have had both of these individuals join our team, but we can't. So unless a commissioner that was involved in the interview, or if Wendy has any additional words they might want to say about the candidates, I will bring a motion to recommend. We do that after the motion recommendation, yes. Okay. So after much reflection and thoughts about the future success of the commission, I would like to make the motion to nominate Brooke Harris for appointment by the Board of Supervisors as an at-large commissioner. I'll ask for a second, then I'll open the floor for discussion from all of you, in particular for Commissioners Terry and Canales, who had the opportunity to meet with both. Is there a second? Commissioner Terry seconds. Thank you, commissioners. Do you have any questions or comments? Commissioner Meredith?
As the longest-serving commissioner of 22 years on the Probation Commission, the Probation Oversight Work Group, which was the precursor to PRIT, and the POC, I have some concerns about this process. When the board created this commission, they took the 5 board appointees and had us review every application and interview every candidate. And what I see here is there was 13 candidates, all qualified, but we chose only 4 to interview. I think we did a disservice because I know at least one of those was a commissioner, but 2 or 3 of those attended these meetings regularly. So I'd also asked to see the applications, and I was told, yeah, we'll look into that. I heard nothing more on that. So I'm kind of curious to how we decided who we're going to interview and not interview. What was the scoring mechanism for it? I just have a lot of concerns about the transparency of it. I think we did a disservice because I think it was unprofessional not to interview the other applicants, because sometimes in these interviews you find out more about them that's not on the paper. So I'm just going to say that at this point, I find the process to be unacceptable to me, as it has a prima facie appearance of directed influence of what candidates should be submitted to the entire POC, appears to be based on not allowing other candidates to be interviewed, and as such, I'm not able to vote yes on either candidate.
Commissioners, questions, concerns? So I would like to just respond with one way. One, I remind Commissioner Meredith that he seconded the process.
But I thought it'd be a valid process.
Well, it was explained. The second is that during the first go-round, when the commission was initiated, not all candidates were interviewed. I know this because I was a candidate.
I know this because I interviewed every candidate submitted to us by the CEO's office.
So that means
So we apparently have disagreement on that. Regardless, the policy, I'm not going for it.
Okay, so with that in mind, I'm just clarifying that they actually used a similar process. They actually looked at all the candidates and just forwarded some of them, but not all of them.
It's not the same process.
Okay, well, Unless there are any concerns, I will ask Wendy to take a vote on whether or not to present Brooke Harris as a nominee for appointment to the board.
Actually, I think first we have to take public comment. No, that's okay. So if you'd like to make public comment in the room, please stand and give your public comment. And if you'd like to make public comment online, you need to be registered on WebEx, and you can't make public comment if you're watching on YouTube. Use the little raise your hand function or dial *3. And I will start the timer and you can begin, Mr. Bell.
Hey, I'm looking at the gentleman's resume right here. Pacific Juvenile Defender Center, Center for Juvenile Law Policy, where he did a lot of, pretty much a defender, public defender. Now with the probation commission, you guys are supposed to be fair and impartial, right? But we're hiring people that are obviously career is set on focusing just on the juveniles, focusing on helping them. Have you guys asked him questions about how he'll help the officers as well? How he'll look into officers? You heard a lot today about our concerns, about what we want to go through. We see defenders, juvenile defenders, juvenile this. You know, there's a whole field office as well, right? Where adults are being handled with as well, but we're hiring somebody that only really deals with juveniles. You know, so I just really want to ask once again that if this is a fair and impartial commission, that we make sure the people that we put on this commission are fair and impartial as well. Thank you.
Mr. Bell has the resumes.
Hello, Reggie Torres, President.
Give me 1 second, please, Mr. Torres. The resumes are attached to the agenda for transparency purposes. Sorry, thank you, Mr. Torres. And let me start your time.
Mr. Bell, I know you.
Go ahead.
I'm Reggie Torres, President. All I'm asking from you guys to be transparent. I want to thank my 100 members for joining me, my brothers and sisters. And at the same time, I want to thank you guys for listening to us. And our contract will be signed. Fight on.
It's online. Okay, Tanya. Thank you. So we have a couple of virtual comments. We'll start with Tanya Ibanez. Tanya, we'll unmute you and you may need to unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
Tanya, can you try it? We're trying to, you're unmuted on our end.
What the hell?
Tanya, we can't hear you.
No. Shit. Isn't this working? Can you hear me?
Let's go to Audrina and we'll
Can
come
you hear
back to
me?
you, Tanya. Audrina, we're going to unmute you.
Sure if this is the right comment I'm supposed to comment. Is this the public comment at the end? Hello?
Okay, great. You can begin, Audrina.
I'm not sure if I'm commenting on the right agenda. Is this the public comment at the end?
No, we're talking about the selection of the new commissioner. Can you hang on for a little while if you want to
Sure.
give general public comment? Okay, thank
Yes,
you.
Thanks.
Let's go back to Tanya.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. You can begin.
Oh,
Thank you.
Thank you. I just wanted to respond to the comment about how there seems to be a bias because a public defender is being considered for the position. And, public defenders can be fair and impartial. SEIU and probation officers routinely show up at the POC meetings and provide valuable input. And there's no reason for this board not to consider the application from a public defender. And as I also recall that last month, there was the same comment from Commissioner O'Merrick about the process, and he was informed by the POC members that he had already agreed to the process and what was supposed to take place. What I would like is for this board to consider having someone who was actually a juvenile and in the detention facilities. I think they would make a really good member to the board, but that's for another day. I think that it's important for us to hear from kids that have been in the hall in the past. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go next to Aditi Sharekar. Aditi, you have 2 minutes. Aditi, you may need to unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
Yes, you can begin.
Good afternoon, Aditi Sharekar, Children's Defense Fund, California. Just want to remind everybody in the room, including the commissioners, that you are the Probation Oversight Commission. This is not meant to be a oversight over like the employee issues of the probation department. That is not the purpose of this body. You do not serve the probation department. You do not need a probation friendly representative. This body came about because of decades of abuse within the probation department and a desire by the public board of supervisors for civilian oversight over an abusive department. So the Probation Oversight Commission is not meant to be oversight over personnel issues that the probation employees are having. You have an entire union that does that for you. You are part of a power apparatus. You have so much more power than any young person inside a facility or on probation. The point of the Probation Oversight Commission is to shed sunlight on abuses within the probation department. It's meant to be to monitor the reforms that we have passed and hope to implement within the department. Civilian oversight over a law enforcement entity has nothing to do with personnel or contract issues that a probation officer may be facing. And it has nothing to do with giving equal weight to probation or something like that. That is not the point of this body. The point of this body is to protect young people inside by providing civilian oversight. And the only reason this body exists is because of the abuses of the probation department. So it doesn't make any sense to be sitting here and talking about whether or not you should have a probation friendly person up there or somebody who is aligned with probation in any way. It would defeat the entire purpose of this body. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Lena Mallett. Okay. That's the end of our public comment.
Commissioners, comments, concerns? Comments or concerns?
I just want to make a comment, Commissioner Meredith. I think when we did originally vote on this process, it was done in transparency. I mean, I don't think we ever meant to exclude anyone. And yeah, I don't even know why I made a comment now that I'm thinking about it.
I am going to read the section of the ordinance that lists membership just to address one of the public comments. This is word for word from the ordinance establishing the POC. It says, the commission shall consist of 9 members with at least 1 member who is formerly justice system involved. At least 1 member who is a family member of someone who is currently or formerly justice involved. At least 1 member who is a member of the State Bar of California with juvenile or criminal justice expertise. Those are 3 requirements of the ordinance. You will note that we have those people who currently serve on the commission, although I will note that 2 of them who are seated at the table to my left, who meet those qualifications, are board appointees, not at-large appointees, meaning that they serve at the will of the appointed board member. That would be Commissioners Kakani and Canales, just to be clear. And so in the at-large selection, there has always been the suggestion that we attempt to meet the requirements of the ordinance in selecting at-large commissioners. There's also another section of the ordinance that states specifically that there should be a consideration of racial, ethnic, age, geographic, gender, gender identity, religious, sexual orientation, occupational, immigration status, disability, and national origin composition when determining members of the commission.
So to clarify the vote and the motion, if Brooke Harris receives the votes, majority of the votes, there will not be a vote for the second candidate. It would be ended there. So if there are any questions about that. I'm not sure how to answer.
Bias.
Suggestion? Why don't we do it this way? So why don't you say, we name whether we want Armida or Brooke, and we just say their name. This way we're not saying I first, we'll just say the name of who we feel, we're voting for. So this way it's up to us to say their name, right? Sounds very diplomatic in my opinion.
I think that's a question for County Council.
So just as I stated, the typical procedure and, for example, like what we see with the board is that a member of the body brings a motion to take action. That's generally pursuant to the Robert's Rules of Order, which the board prefers all commissions to follow. So that is the typical procedure, but the commission will run its business as it sees fit. But typically, a motion is brought and then a motion is voted on. And if that fails, there can be an alternate motion.
And essentially, by not voting for Brooke Harris, you voted for Armida. So. Oh, if you have any follow-up. Oh, no, I was giving you a chance to any follow-up. Okay. So Wendy, will you take the vote, please?
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. I will note for the minutes that Commissioner Meredith has left, but we still have a quorum with 5 members present. So the motion made by Commissioner Mundo and seconded by Commissioner Terry, yes, is to recommend Brooke Harris as the appointee to the at-large open position for consideration by the Board of Supervisors. So commissioners, please vote yes, no, or abstain. Commissioner Canales?
I vote no, that means.
It means that, I want to answer your question technically. It means that you're voting no to the recommendation of Brooke Harris to the commission. So you can interpret that in the way that you have just stated, but the vote is yes or no for Brooke Harris.
Still do.
Correct.
Okay, then no.
Commissioner Prater? Commissioner Kakani?
Yes.
Commissioner Terry?
Yes.
Commissioner Mundo? So I'm going to clarify with Ms. Sylvester, but with 3 yeses, 1 abstention, and 1 no, we do not have a decision. Is that correct?
So at this time, we have
5 members present, 3 being the majority of the members present.
That's correct.
So it does, the motion can still carry.
Correct.
Okay, so with a vote of 3 yeses and 1 abstention and 1 no, The motion carries. Thank you for that clarification.
Okay, thank you. So we will move on to agenda item 4. I'm sorry, 8. We will be discussing and taking, we will go back to 5. Commissioner Bonnie had some follow-up questions.
Just again, I know that Mr. Bates isn't here, but, and I get that this does not address the underlying issue, but my thought was that the first team, or first, was dedicated to identifying larger issues that required kind of additional training, development of policies. It wasn't necessarily the way internal affairs is kind of looking at whether this officer did something right or wrong. The first group was dedicated to like the larger systemic issues. From the months of June, July of 2023 to December of 2023, were there any larger policy issues that were identified that required additional training or not, if you know?
Sorry, Commissioner, I do not.
Okay. And then of the 600 plus cases of use of force, 622, do you know how many of those actually landed on the desk of the first people?
I do not offhand. I can get that information.
Okay, thank you.
Want to know how many of the 662 landed on?
Right, because my understanding is that all 622 of those should have been reviewed by first. So just curious how many were actually reviewed by first? And then also what larger kind of policy, training, support needs were identified?
So to kind of answer the policy, as you just restated it, I would say the need for the use of force provision of the policies, because that's stem from the issues of the backlog. Like, hey, we think there's something here that's causing this. So the
Okay.
training, looking at the training plan, revising the policies, but I will double check specifically July, I think that was July 2023 to December.
Just that, yeah,
What
the
was-
6-month period that's covered
What
by
policies
this
and
report.
what,
Whatever recommendations came from first, if any, because I think that was the intention behind creating first. And sorry, and can you clarify, when you say physical intervention training by Gracie, are you referring to Gracie Jiu Jitsu?
yes.
Do you have their training or whatever it is that they're providing in writing or?
I do in my office. It goes
Okay.
over it. I know it's like in medical fields, it's various fields. But yes, we do have a copy of what it in.
Okay, yeah, if you could share that, that would be helpful.
Commissioner Prater. Oh, actually, because we lost quorum, we're actually going to have to end the meeting. We have to adjourn. Oh, however, Commissioner Terry was going to report out on the ad hoc committee meeting for programming. And we will be doing that via a town hall. So look at our website for information that should be coming. Thank you.